Jason Chingel out of the hold of Mesco. Good snap, good hold, and the kick is blocked. Appalachian State has stunned the college football world. One of the greatest upsets in sports history.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Friday is here, boys and girls. Good morning, and good morning. We welcome you, as always, to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Thom Brennaman, joined by a cast of thousands here in the studio and in our chat and online. We come your way Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. You can find us on YouTube/Chatterbox Sports, and we always ask, if you would, please subscribe to the program. You can join us on Facebook at the Chatterbox Sports page, or if you prefer to join us in podcast form, many of you do, that's great. Search Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman and you're dialed in. Well, not a good morning. A warrant has been issued apparently for the arrest of Bengals running back Joe Mixon on a complaint of misdemeanor aggravated menacing. According to the complaint, Mixon pointed a gun at another person just before the team left Cincinnati for its playoff game in Buffalo a couple of weeks ago. Now, Mixon's agent, he came right out from the get-go and has said he expects the charges to be dropped as early as this morning, citing it was a rush to judgment. The Bengals are aware of the complaint and have no comment. High school football, we rarely talk about it, but big news here in Cincinnati. You want the good news or the bad news first, boys? Casey, Paul, Brandon, what you want first?
Always good.
Always good. All right, good it is. We start with the good news. Moeller star running back Jordan Marshall has whittled his college choices down to 4, and they are 4 big ones. That's how good this guy is. They are Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Tennessee. Of course, he still has a senior season to play for the Crusaders. But maybe the most pertinent and biggest news of all, his head coach, Mark Elder, is leaving the program. Haven't heard exactly why yet. Elder has led the Crusaders to back-to-back state Final Fours the last 2 seasons. He's won 24 of his last 30. You may remember he came as a former college head coach at Eastern Kentucky University to take over at Moeller. A replacement and a search for a replacement is underway. College hoops, the struggles in Columbus continue. The Buckeyes slipped to 11-11 following a loss at home last night to Wisconsin 65-60. Ohio State now in legitimate danger of not reaching the tournament. They started the year 10-3, were ranked in the top 12. They are 1-8 since. Number 3, Houston. Number 5, Arizona. Number 9, UCLA. And number 12, Gonzaga. All winners last night. Tomorrow, both UC and Xavier are back on the hardwood. The Bearcats host UCF. Xavier hosts St. John's at 5. Back to the Bearcats for a moment. Wes Miller landed one of the top junior college players in the country yesterday in point guard Davion Thomas out of Kilgore Community College. That's down in Texas. He's a 6'1 point guard, averages 20 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists per game, and apparently had turned down offers from West Virginia, Memphis, numerous Big 12 schools, Big 10 schools. We'll talk to Scott Springer. He is new on the beat at theenquirer.com about Thomas and this year's UC team and, what it has to look forward to moving forward. Lots of action, gentlemen, on the chat front. Paul, you're getting worn out this morning.
Oh, I deserve it, Tom.
I got to tell you, you are getting hammered by our buddy, the player formerly known as Mouse Cop.
Oh, Tom, I fully deserve it. When you give out losers like I've been giving out this week, and they are straight donations to Betfred Sportsbook, I deserve it. I deserve the flack. There's no doubt about it. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. And I have been straight up Not cooking anything the last week. After I started like 8-0 when we were doing those graphics a couple of weeks ago, Casey gets on the graphic. We put Casey on the graphic for the first time. Boom, hits. Reed, 2-0. Me, 0-2. Tank. Tired. My Thom Brennaman impression for the day.
Casey has been on quite a roll between the casino and his picks. You got it going on right now.
Yeah, last couple days, at least in sports betting, I've won, I want to say like 25 units. So it's not bad. It's not bad. But
what is a unit for those of us gambling 101? What does that mean?
It's however much you normally bet. So
if I normally bet $10, that's a unit.
That's a unit. So okay. It's a way to compare to scale. So that way, if you say you're up $1,000, you could be betting $1,000 a game. You went one night and you bet $1,000. Okay, so what? You won one game. But if I'm up $1,000 and I'm betting $50 a game, I mean, that's crazy. That means I've won 20 games. So it's just a way to compare. So Casey over here shaves the beard, starts throwing out winners, and I'm just straight losing. Now, I did end up positive last night because I got Houston on a live line, and I threw a lot of money on that. So I did end up having a decent night. But on the graphic, the picks, bad.
Casey, you shaved the beard, and it looks like you're starting to kind of, maybe just missed a day for a real man like yourself. Got that, rough look.
Yeah.
Have you decided? By the way, it's your fiance's birthday today.
It is. It's her 24th birthday today.
You want to look in the camera and
happy birthday, sweetheart.
Wow. So, serious question here though for a second.
Yeah.
The majority of the time, is it safe to say, or is this incorrect? Because I don't know. I've only known you for a number of months. Have you had a beard or not had a beard during most of your relationship?
I've had a beard like that a couple times throughout the relationship. I was actually going to let it grow out even more, but I just took a hard look in the mirror and said, "You're not going to a barber anytime soon," and just went to town and took the electric razor. And
so, what about for the wedding day?
This is probably the look I'm going with, honestly.
You mean the 2-day growth?
Yep.
Kind of thing.
A little stubble. She likes the way that looks a lot, and I like the way I look a lot when I'm got a little stubble.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
It's all that matters. Oh gosh, do we have so many demented people in this chat? I got to tell you. We got Zim Uday coming up here shortly. Paul Doherty a little bit later on to talk about Tom Brady and his retirement. Doc's also going to clue us in. He was watching yesterday when we started asking Tracy Jones, and we're going to circle back on this with Tracy on Tuesday, about our 5 favorite streaming shows. And so Doc was watching yesterday, and he says, I watch way too much television in these shows. So he'd like to weigh in on that today as well.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to get into Zim Uday has a long-standing personal relationship with Joe Mixon. Listen, I don't like getting into any of this stuff because I don't know anymore what's true and what's not true. I was very surprised to learn. You guys shared with me a little while ago that I guess there are some media outlets and have published the guy's address. And look, I'm not saying this guy ought to be given the benefit of the doubt of anything, but we do live in a country where you're innocent until proven guilty. I don't know. You don't know. I'm not sure anybody knows outside of the 2 people that were involved in this whole situation, if that's what it was, or what it is, or whatever. The police clearly know about it. It is rare that here in Cincinnati you may not agree with every single police decision or those coming out of the prosecutor's office on a regular basis, although Joe Dieters was phenomenal here for a long time before going to the Ohio Supreme Court a couple months ago. But they rarely ever have had situations where all of a sudden things are public and then you find out that they didn't happen or they're not true. We've talked a lot of times about situations on this program involving other athletes in other towns and a he said, she said, or he said kind of thing, and back and forth and this and that. And then you don't find out for weeks or months later actually what happened. So, I guess, according to his agent, they're fully expecting these charges to be dropped today. But, is the damage already done, whether he did it or didn't do it? That's the problem with situations like this.
Right.
That if he didn't do it, and I'm not saying he didn't, I have no clue, but if he didn't, you can't get that back for your reputation.
I know. And he's already created such a great reputation for himself. It's sad. And just coming from...
Well, it's not sad if he did it.
It's not sad if he did it. I have faith. I have faith, whether that's warranted faith or not, just in people that I trust, like a Zim or other people that are close to him that say that, this is fake news or whatever. I think the whole situation is screwed up. I think I'm more mad about the news stations leaking out his information and the potential victims' information than anything else. And coming from that is just like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing as a local area, the Cincinnati area? These news stations need to do a better job at, one, making sure that it's legitimate, that it's, and I know there was an actual warrant out there, but it's going to apparently be dropped today, and that came out like an hour after everyone found out that the warrant was out. Like, they're just like, a lot of things don't seem to be adding up here.
Well, I can tell you one thing, and I have shared this story many, many times in layers of it. I'll just focus in on this one part. I'll never forget as long as I live. When I'm doing the 2003 National League Championship Series, and in Game 6 you had the Bartman situation down the left field line. Ball goes down there. He tries to catch a ball. Moises Alou goes crazy. And, everything that happened after that. I got up the next morning because we were going to broadcast Game 7 that night at Wrigley Field between the Marlins and the Cubs. And as soon as I turn on the television, which I rarely ever did when I was in a hotel room. I mean, I'd spend days at a time in a hotel, never turn on TV. And I turn it on that morning, and the first thing I see is this, shot from a helicopter, clearly. And you're thinking, okay, well, they're doing the traffic. City like Chicago, they've got all that fancy bells and whistles and so forth, and traffic stinks and blah, blah, blah. Turns out that they're flying over the place of employment for Steve Bartman. The two major newspapers in Chicago, the Tribune and the Sun-Times, were both given the choice of whether they were going to publish his name in the paper the next day. The Tribune decided not to, but once the Chicago Sun-Times decided to put Steve Bartman's name in the paper, I mean to tell you, all hell broke loose. And this poor guy's never been seen or heard from since. All right, let's get to our main man, Zim Hude. Zim, have you caught your breath, my friend? I mean, we haven't caught up with you since you made the trip to Kansas City. How you doing? What's your state of mind right now, Zim? Well, a lot of people are wondering how you're doing, how you're feeling. Are you okay?
Yes, I am. I'm alive and I'm well. I feel good. I'm very optimistic about, I feel like it's crazy. And I almost feel like it's almost the summertime because the season is over. I'm like looking forward to like vacations and stuff like that. When they say Cancun on 3, I'm really like on Cancun mode. Like I went so hard, we were in savage mode and we did so much stuff that now I'm at this spot where I'm like, all right, I wish we would have gone further, or the Bengals gone further, but it is like a sigh of relief to a certain extent because it's like, all right, the pressure of this team winning, all these different things, all those things kind of went away a little bit. So I do feel good about that. Very disappointed in losing that game. That was one of the toughest games that I've ever had to witness because it was probably the second, third worst they played all season, and they still almost won. I just thought that they played so over the last 3 months, man. That was the best. everybody's so quick to talk about the all season and stuff, and I just can't get over the fact that, you know, like, life is short, opportunities are limited. Man, that was the best Bengals team I've ever seen. I think I asked you that. Like everybody's just so quick, like, all right, let's get on to scouting. Like, how do you fix something that wasn't even really flawed like that? Like, it just had some unfortunate injuries right before the playoffs, and that showed in the game. And, you know, I guess we'll talk about that, but that was the best Bengals team I've ever seen. It would have wiped out like the earlier teams. I didn't get a chance to watch everyone. They would have creamed the 2005 Bengals. They would have beat the heck out of the 2015 Bengals too.
Yeah, I don't think they would have beaten. My own personal opinion is I don't think they would have beaten the team that went to the Super Bowl most recently before the one last year.
Really?
I think. Yeah. I mean, that team. Now. I mean, you know, the wide receivers were pretty close, and that's hard to imagine. I mean, it was an unbelievable bunch they had, but the running backs and the offensive line were night and day. I mean, they really were. You had James Brooks, you had Ickey Woods, you had Stanley Wilson, you had multiple All-Pro offensive linemen. I think this year's Bengals defense was better this year. You know, at the end of the day, to make a play, that defense had some good players. Kind of like this year's team. They had good players. They had a couple of standouts like this year's team. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We'll never know. How did you go? Go ahead. What were you going to say?
That's what I was saying, like, that I've ever witnessed. You got to think, you know, were you talking about like 88?
Yep.
I mean, like, bro, I'm like 4 or 5 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm super.
I know what you're saying. I
didn't see it. So I take everybody's word for it for sure. But just as I witnessed it, that, like, to lose like that, it sucked. Like, I just was like, from the very beginning, I just was like, God, that's not the same team. Like, they just couldn't get over the pressure, you know, on that right-hand side of the line, and they never made those adjustments.
How were you treated personally when you went to Kansas City? I got to believe, after all the stuff that was going on leading up to the game and social media and all that kind of stuff, when you show up out in the parking lot before the game, there had to be a bunch of Kansas City people that recognized who you were. Am I right or wrong on that?
Yeah, some people recognize me, but Twitter life and real life are two different things. Like Twitter is not real. Like, when people, the Chiefs fans that did identify me there were like, "Oh man, I love your stuff." Then I go home and I looked at my phone, like, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, what's your Twitter?" And then I look at it, I'd be like, "These the guys that be talking about, like, Zim Huday's trash or the Bengals are trash. These the guys." And then when they meet me, they're like, "Hey man, I love all your content." Like, Twitter life and in real life are two totally different things. I thought their fans that I sat next to, I had to break up one fight. I thought their fans, like, the last season, I thought they treated me, it was really good. It was a great environment. You know, I tell people a lot of different stuff. I thought this season, like, they were obnoxious. Like, we would be yelling who they, like, on defense, and they were, like, telling us, like, not this chant and stuff and say who they when we didn't get caught. So, you know, the phantom play where they got the free play. Naturally, all the Bengals fans were like, I was still like, okay, let's just go win the game. I'll worry about that later. But the Bengals fans that I was around, like, they just never got over that. So everybody was like chanting, like, you know, like Roger Goodell, like, you know, that type of stuff. And I think it upset all the Chiefs fans around me. So they, every single time a play would happen in our favor after that moment, they'd be like, see, you didn't, like, we didn't call anything in. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of beside the point. Like, we're all witnessing, like, some very questionable calls here. Wouldn't you agree? And then I just thought it was, like, so crazy that everybody beforehand was like, they were the ones, like, first quarter, early on, talking about referees, like, heavy, like, every single call. Oh my God, they ain't called it. Oh my. And then when the call started going their way, they was just like, yeah. And then afterwards, it was like, yeah, man, you guys are great. And I'm thinking to myself, like, bro, like, if y'all lost, y'all would have been crying. Like, they would have been in tears out there. And I just thought it was, like, I don't know. I didn't. Not only was it very cold out there, Tom, it was like one of those games where it was just, it wasn't fun. If we had won, maybe my perspective might be different, but
Sure.
I just thought that they were super obnoxious the whole entire game, and it was like, it was annoying.
All right, let me ask you this. Did I read correctly? Did Chris Jones call you a clown? I mean, is that true?
Hey, look, for somebody that keeps all their receipts, I guess Chris Jones had mine. He had that receipt just sitting right there, right? Because as soon as that game was over, he found that receipt. I was talking to like some of the guys on the team. I'm like, bro, like, did Chris Jones like tweet you? They're like, no. I was like, so he tweeted me of all people? Like, why would Chris Jones? Like, I'm asking the guy, I'm like, bro, did Chris Jones, like, was he talking trash? They was like, nah. I'm like, so this dude, but I have a theory, though. I have a theory. Before the week of the game, hear me out. This is kind of crazy. Twitter Spaces always has a lot of like what I think are like burner accounts of like, sometimes I think they're players or whatever. We just keep on talking the whole entire time. When I was in the Spaces, I kept on saying how in the week 15 matchup, he didn't play good at all. Now, I don't know if he has a burner account or what, but somebody must have gave him, got word to him. I said, bro, and these are facts. This is not me talking trash. Prior to that game, he had never registered a playoff sack.
Yep.
In the week 15 matchup, he didn't give a pressure, he didn't give a sack or anything. So I was telling him I thought he was a great player, but he didn't do anything the last time. Now, mind you, I'm thinking he's going to be lining up on the left-hand side with Volson and going against, Karras and Karma, and I didn't care. As soon as that didn't work out for them, like the first series or two, they moved him over to Adeniji, and, the rest is history, and he had a great game. I don't think that he'll have that same game in the Super Bowl. That's just my opinion. But I also showed like 3 or 4 plays, like in the Spaces you could show plays, and he took plays off in the week 15. He was getting double teamed a lot, and I highlighted 3-4 plays, and then I noticed that the plays were getting likes from like burner accounts. You know what I'm saying? Like not like actual people. So I'm like, well, it got to be like a, like a Chiefs, enthusiast or something. Maybe it's him or not, but whatever it is, I'm pretty like, because other than that, I don't have any tweets or anything about them. I don't at players, so I just thought it was crazy that he came back after that. I don't tweet, I don't at players because I just think, I don't know, that's kind of weird to me. Unless it's like a player I know, like it's just a little awkward to me.
Right. So when do you now, Zim, you said earlier, and you and your main man, Ace Boogie, you guys are going to continue on with Cincinnati, your podcast and all that kind of thing. When are you going to start shifting gears into the offseason? Because this is a big offseason for the Bengalis.
That's a great question, Tom. I've been outside ever since the game. You know me. I'll be hanging out outside, trying to clear my thoughts.
Yep. You're a woodsy kind of man. For those that are just watching Zim for the first time.
I literally, I got my bubble vest on. I just was outside, and I was thinking, me and my son, we've been running laps and stuff, and we're trying to get our mind right. He's heavy in basketball, so I kind of shifted my focus. Everybody's super excited about prospects, and I swear, and I do some good breakdown on some guys. I pick guys, like every single season, and people that follow me, they know that. When I tell you this is the least enthusiastic I've been about the offseason in my entire life. Like, I have no desire to, like, look at a player or anything. Like, I just don't. Like, that team, minus the injuries going into that playoff, I just, like, I'm thinking about, like, the window of opportunity. I've talked about that on the show. It's very, very small sometimes, and you need a lot of different things. You need a Sam Hubbard 94-yard, fumble return. You need, you need a Hail Mary pass to fall on the ground, and you need all these different things. You need maybe snowy conditions for offensive linemen that work in their favor. You need all these different things, to work. And I'm smart enough to realize I don't see a world where, and I could be just jumping the gun, I don't see a world where they'll have as much talent on paper as what they just had, like this upcoming season.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think they got. I think they got some wiggle room here as far as their fiscal situation is concerned because of of the money they've been kind of putting in a war chest. They'll without a doubt structure Burrow's contract in such a way that they won't be taking big hits against a cap. If I were a betting man, at least for say 3 more years. So I don't know. If I were a betting man, and I'm not, these other guys, they watch their money go out the door all the time gambling. I think if I were a betting man, I would bet they have a better roster next year than they had this year. Now, does that mean they're going to be a better team? Does that mean they're going to play better? Does that mean that they're going to win as many games? No, of course it doesn't, because you can't foresee some of the things. You just ripped off a couple. Play by Hubbard, that could be made by the other team next year. The Hail Mary in the end zone. Maybe the guy catches a ball next year. But I would bet money. They've proven to me, Duke, Tobin, and that whole group, that they're very good at assessing the talent that they have, whether to keep them or let them go. They're very good in terms of assessing draft picks, going all the way back to the Marvin era. They've always been very good in the draft by and large. And they've been exceptionally good at being able to judge talent of free agent players that they could bring in from other teams. I think that they're going to have a better team, better roster next year than this year. Does that give you any hope, Tim?
For sure. I value your opinion, Tom. They got some tough calls to make. Like the Jermaine Pratt, Logan Wilson. Of course, I think they probably go Logan Wilson. I think Jermaine Pratt is like one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Like, seriously. I just don't see them. I do see a world where I think that they can go get make offensive line a point of strength. And that alone, I was telling people some different things I thought from a philosophical standpoint, like this is the direction that we want to go. Like maybe you go tight end heavy in the draft, kind of getting a 2-for-1, a guy that can block inline and super athletic, still re-sign Hayden Hurst, and then work and draft the offensive lineman early. Then you got La'el Collins. As he comes back, maybe he's the 6th man. Mm-hmm. And then now your offensive line is like a point of strength. If you got La'el Collins as like the 6th guy, I could see a lot of these different things, but some of it is so early that I'm not privy to all the information as far as how much cap space that they need. I mean, they have after these deals get done. What does the T. Higgins deal look like? All these different things. I do say if they were able to go get an outstanding 3-sack, one thing from the Super Bowl that I'll be watching for, that a guy that I got my eye on is Hargrave, the defensive tackle. He had 11 sacks. He might be in that $8, $9, $10 million range. I don't know if they have a move for something like that, but a move like that, I think on the defensive side of the ball, and then what I just talked about on the offensive side of the ball, I think the thing that I do know is if they strengthen the trenches on both sides and make it a point of strength and not just good or above average, then I think they can kind of get away from the problems that have halted them getting a Super Bowl the last 2 seasons. And I could see a world where that happens. So I'm with you. Maybe it's early and I just got to get more info. And like I said, leaving that game, that was tough.
You growing the hair back out this winter? I mean, you get out in the woods a little bit. You're out there taking care of the koi. There was a time you had the dreadlocks going, all that kind of thing. Is that coming back, or are you going to stay pretty clean cut like you are now? What's the deal?
I'm gonna stay around here, trying to make sure I stay handsome in some type of way. I haven't figured it out. I'm just out here kind of rogue right now, just figuring out what are the next step for the Bengalis, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. Hey, we'll be dialed in. We'll be dialed in with you and your main man, Ace Boogie. You guys are going to continue doing the podcast, right? I mean, even during the offseason, or did he kind of scale it back? What do you do?
Oh, heck yeah. For sure we're doing the podcast. We probably change it to maybe once a week now until it starts to get into heavy draft mode. Because currently right now we do every Tuesday and Thursday, Cincinnati pod, 7:30. There are other shows too on our network too. So those shows will be going on. We got the Bengals Pulse, and then we also have the 513. So those guys, they already do once a week. We're going to add, we're working on a well-known talent that I think we're going to add to the podcast too, coming up for this upcoming season as well. So we're just trying to make sure that we got the proper producer and stuff like that to make sure that the stuff gets done right. And when that happens, I'm gonna come on here and I'll be able to talk to you about it. And
that'd be great. In fact, we're in search of capable producers on this program as well.
I could produce for you. You want me to produce for you? Oh, we could just come on there and we just have like a whole segment where we just roast people that have been talking trash to you.
I'm all in on that. I'm all in.
I'll pull
but
up
hey,
the
man,
tweets
I
and
don't get Chris Jones, sending me tweets, man. I mean, calling me a clown.
But it's not as cool
you're Mac Daddy. You got Chris Jones calling you a clown. You've reached the big leagues when that happens.
It's not cool though, because all it does is all the little 12-year-old kids that like Chris Jones will be like, "You suck, Zim," all day, and I'm just sitting to myself like, I didn't even do anything to Chris Jones. I think he's a good player. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. Zim, you're the best.
The internet is crazy.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. All right, my man, we can't thank you enough for everything. We're going to have you back just to check in to find out how you're doing, and we appreciate all of your enthusiasm and your insight. We love having you as a regular part of the program, and we're grateful for it. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you for having me, man. Anytime. I'm always here. I ain't doing nothing. I'm just hanging out in the woods, Tom. Same old Zim.
You got to get out there, say your prayers, Zim, start reflecting a little bit. You know what I mean? You got your little man there in basketball season. Go enjoy every second of that. I mean, I wish I had those days back. I've got my son's final high school sports season starting here in about 3 weeks, and I'm already sad before it even begins.
Man, I was watching my son, and his first game was last week, and I was just like, man, I was so I almost wanted to cry watching because he played hard. He scored 2 baskets. They got him at center. He's the tallest kid out there. And I didn't realize how they were going to use him until I saw him play against other players. So all week we've been talking about you're the big man, and I'm hyping him up, and we've been out there running and stuff. It's so funny. He's a funny guy. I'm gonna bring him on here one day. I'm gonna let you talk to him.
I'd love to have him come on. If you were really smart, you'd have him train a little basketball with me for a couple of weeks. Because Zim, you may not know this, but I was one of the great basketball coaches in the history of Cincinnati for many, many years. Youth basketball.
See?
Got rings to prove it, Zim. Rings to prove it. Boys and girls. Championships.
Okay.
C stands for championship, Zim. All right, my man.
I like that.
Absolutely.
I like that. You gotta. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, no, I'm gonna connect him with you and get some of his skills up because he's.
I would love to. I can promise you one thing: if he played for me and he's the big fella, he'd be down there banging. That I can promise you. And the second that he's not down there banging and getting rebounds is the second he's sitting next to me. That's what I used to tell him all the time. I'm like, if you like being out there, you better go bang and you better get some rebounds. That's your job. And if you don't do it, and mind you, I'm speaking to 9-year-olds. I tell them if you don't do it, you will sit next to me the rest of the game. How does that sound? Not too bueno.
Sounds awesome.
So let's go get it done. Let's get it done.
Sounds good to me. To me. I feel like his coaches don't come with enough ammunition like that. That's what they need to do. And see, I don't want to overstep my boundaries.
I had all the ammunition, Zim, all the ammunition. I knew what buttons to push with every single one of them, the guys and the girls. And I just said, go get after people. Go guard somebody, take care of the ball, and rebound. Yep. And we'll be all right. You know what I mean?
Yep. That's what I might. Like I said, you're gonna have to give him a pep talk. He's got to get tough. He's still like a nice guy out there and stuff.
Yeah, you don't want those guys around. No, you can be nice when they get off the court. I mean, a couple of my best big guys and big girls, they were the nicest people off the court in the world. I used to tell them all the time. I'm like, that's all fine and dandy. Give everybody and his brother a hug and a kiss after the game. But when they throw that ball up in midcourt to start it, until the second that clock strikes 0, you better be the nastiest SOB on the planet.
Yes, sir. Glass heaters.
End of story. Zim, good seeing you, buddy.
Good seeing you.
Zim Uday. We got to get his big fella, on this show. Get him in town. Train him up.
Get him ready to go.
Isn't it so funny when you're playing youth sports, especially youth basketball, and you just stick the tallest kid on the floor at center, and then he grows up and he plays center, and then by the time high school rolls around and everybody else is as tall as he is, he really should be a guard, but he only knows how to play in the post, and then he's out of position. It's a travesty in American youth sports.
Well, it is, and that's why I think it's so important. And I mean, look, I joke around about the basketball coaching stuff and being any good at it. We had a lot of fun. I enjoyed every second of it. But I've always thought, you've got to get those kids in basketball. And these are boys and girls. Even if they're the biggest kid, you still got to get them young to learn how to handle the ball. So if that happens, which it does, you're spot on, inevitably.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The one or two tallest kids in the 4th or 5th or 6th grade all of a sudden are very average height by the time they reach the 10th grade. But because they're no longer tall, the only skill set they've ever learned was to play a tall person's game. Whereas even when they're tall as a youth, if you teach them how to handle the ball, how to pass, how to move, how to do all these things, play man-to-man defense, all these kinds of things, they're going to be all right. And they'll thank you for it down the road.
I was the opposite. I remember, I was always a guard. And then freshman year of high school rolled around. I mean, I'm 6'3" now. So freshman year of high school rolled around and I had grown. And I remember my coach called me into his office on the day of the first game because all I was doing in practice was shooting, but I was the tallest guy on the floor. He calls me into his office and he goes, "Paul, I need you to understand something. You are not a guard anymore." I said, "Coach, that's the only thing I know." He goes, "Paul, you're the tallest guy on the floor." I said, "What do you want me to do? Rebound? I'm like 110 pounds. Can't do that. Got a middle school frame, baby. Can't cook those boards up. Let me hop out in the corner and knock down some threes."
No doubt. Shoot them up. Jack it up. Jack it up. All right, fellas, what's on our mind today? What's on your mind today? Are you reaching the point where you're able to finally now move forward, put the game behind you, right? That was Sunday. We're sitting here Friday. Zim's not ready to move on yet. He's trying. He's walking around in the woods, reflecting, sitting by the koi pond in his backyard. He's not there yet. What about all of you? Are you there yet? Casey, you there yet?
I'm not giving the Bengals any excuses here, but all I can do is think about what if we had Kappa and we had Collins. I think we would have done this. I think I'm going to be doing that for a little bit longer, honestly. Yep. And whether I can emotionally recover from this loss, I mean, I will eventually, but I mean, now it's a true rivalry, right? That's the best thing that could have happened. Now it's a true rivalry.
There are two types of people in the world, Tom.
Really?
There are two types.
Should we build like some kind of animation like Thoughts with Paul? Should we build something like that? I mean, this is deep now. There are two types of people.
There are only two types of people.
All right, only two.
Only two.
Okay.
There are what-if people, and there are not what-if people. I am a what-if person. Especially in gambling, you have to be a what-if person. It's half the fun of everything. Oh, what if? What if they had just made this layup? I would have hit the over. What if we would have just had Kappa? We probably would have won.
Isn't that sadist?
I don't know. What if to me is part of the fun of everything. I love playing the woulda, coulda, shoulda game. I love it. I think it's entertaining. I spend too much time thinking about it. Some people, they don't like it, and that's fine. Some people aren't what-if people. Some people aren't woulda, coulda, shoulda people. I'm not one of those people, but I think that part of the fun of sports, and like it's all entertainment, part of the fun of sports and all of this that we invest so much of our time and our effort and our emotional energy and everything into following these teams and covering these teams and talking about these teams and these players. What are we doing if we don't sit here at least for a second and entertain the idea that, oh, maybe, yeah, if we did have our best offensive lineman, maybe we would have won the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you can formulate opinions without having true facts.
Yeah, there it is.
Why let the facts stand in the way of a good thought or a good story?
There it is, right? Tom.
Right?
Now we're on to something. Don't let your facts get in the way of a good narrative.
Never. No chance. You know, it's gotten a lot of pub. It did around here for a while, and I just dismiss this stuff outright. Although there's no doubt, going back and seeing a lot of the clips of the game and penalties that were called or penalties that were not called and all that kind of thing. We're talking officiating here. That's gotten a lot of pub here since that game from a national perspective. Gene Steratore comes out, who was in the booth there with Nance and Romo and that CBS crew, and it's pointed out multiple calls that were not made or missed, especially the holding calls, 2 of them on that final scramble for Mahomes, where, Osai hits him out of bounds, penalty, the rest. But normally you don't get a lot of people that buy into all that, and they're just like, oh, it's those Cincinnati people, or whatever town lost the game, oh, it's those Philadelphia people, whatever it might be. But, there's been a lot of pub about the officiating in that game. And I really wonder if that crew and that referee who worked the Super Bowl last year, and they blew some big-time calls in that game too, on both sides. They blew some big-time calls. I mean, look, the NFL doesn't have to do anything in terms of changing what they do with officials. You use baseball as an example. There are very few things that baseball does better than football. But one thing they clearly do better than football is they take care of their umpires. They are year-round employees, the umpires are, so they don't have to go, like NFL officials do. These guys literally, I used to meet with them every week, every Sunday. I'd see them at a lot of our hotels. We'd stay in the same hotel when I'd be on the road doing a game on television. And these guys, Monday through Friday, are working a regular job, just like, the rest of you out there. And then they're showing up on a weekend, and they're running around with the biggest, the strongest, the fastest people on earth, right? And that's what they have to do to support their families. The NFL has never bought all in. They have to a small extent, but never all in on all of these guys, making that their craft year-round. They don't have to do it. There's no pressure on them. But things like this can start to at least build some momentum, and there is starting to be a little talk about that kind of thing, and I have no doubt that in the State of the Union, if you will, with Roger Goodell coming up next week from a Super Bowl, he will be asked regularly about the officiating because it's been bad all year long.
And it's a shame that we have to talk about it. This is the same point that I made on Monday or whenever it was. The storyline after a game like this, when you have your best product on the field, when you have the 2 teams that you're hoping get to the AFC Championship game, the story should never be the officiating. It doesn't matter what's going on, what happens in the game. It doesn't matter. The story should never be the officiating. So when it is the story, and it's consistently the story as much as it is now, the NFL's got to do something about it. I don't know what that is, maybe fixing the replay, whether it's an eye in the sky deal where you can go in and make a call like that when you need to. Because an eye in the sky, an effective eye in the sky could fix all of these problems because it could see a lot of those things. Is that the be-all, end-all solution? I don't know. The replay issue, I know a lot of people talk a lot about the replay issue. I personally am a huge fan of replay. I think if you have the ability to get the call right, get the call right. So from that perspective, if you can go to the eye in the sky and do a replay and make sure that you get the call right, do it. These guys are paid money to – the officiating should not determine the outcome of a game just because, they couldn't figure it out by replay or whatever it is.
Yeah. My thoughts are, officiating has always been a topic of discussion every year, so why would he do anything to change it now? I mean, you can go back every year, and there's going to be a game that someone can point to. One of the games I can think of vividly in my mind right now that totally cost the team a Super Bowl chance was that Saints-Rams game, where the guy clearly had a pass interference, and then they changed the rule to be able to challenge that. And then they changed it back because it was a terrible, terrible idea, and it just never – sometimes calls are just missed. But in the Bengals game in that situation, For me, there was 2 calls in that game that I feel like were just unacceptable, or what the outcome of it was unacceptable, and that's the redo. I feel like once you've already ran a play and it's already the next down, you can't just go back. That's just, you move on. It's like the same thing from, like, you get a free play on a false start. You mean you ran the play, and if it ends up being an interception, all right, you accept the penalty. If not, you just get whatever yards you got. I mean, that's – and in that situation, I thought the handling of that was unacceptable. I mean, you got to be blowing your whistle, and you can't let the play happen. Whatever is going on, you as the ref have got to stop the play in the middle of it happening. Because when there's an offsides or an infraction, the play will start to happen, it'll start to develop, and the refs will come running in, waving their hands, blow the whistle, and none of them did that. So to me,
well, I think the case there was the fact that nobody could hear the whistle. I think it's pretty evident the guy on the high camera above, he is waving his arms, he's blowing his whistle, the whole 9 yards. It's so loud in the stadium, nobody can hear it.
Well, I get where you can't hear, but you can see. But you can see him obviously run, and he's got to run into the play. He's got to stop it. You can't just let it happen. And so to me, it's the handling of that situation for the refs could have been a lot better. And I think that can be corrected. I think that can be fine. But what's done is done. You can't change that. There's no eye in the sky that can fix that problem. The other issue I had was a judgment call on the intentional grounding. And I know the rule specifically states it has to reach past line of scrimmage. But I thought, in my opinion, Samaje was close enough to the ball. And then it becomes more of a judgment call. And that was a deciding factor of how the ending of this game was going to be handled. It was going to be in the hands of Kansas City to make a play to get down to the field and score a field goal. It took the ball out of the Bengals' hands. It pushed them back. It was 3rd and 18 or something like that. And then they get sacked again. It was effectively that drive, they got sacked back-to-back times. Brutal. Just absolutely killed any momentum they had after making that 3rd and 14 catch by Hayden Hurst, I believe. I felt like that was a situation where the rules, there's just nothing that you can do. Here's what I'm ultimately getting at. There's nothing you can do to change any of those. Those are all either judgment or mistakes that are not properly handled.
Yes.
So I don't understand why the conversation is even really about that and more just about how the Bengals played, because there's nothing you can do to change any of those things.
Well, one of the big issues you face when you get into some of this, and Paul, you made the comment that you're okay as long as you get the call right, and you're a big replay fan. I think most people agree with that until the games start becoming college basketball games.
Yeah.
Where there's review after review after review. And look, the pro game is really, really concerned, unlike baseball, about their time of play in their games. Because the whole league is built on television, right? You watch a 1 o'clock game, you've got 4 o'clock games, you have big 4:30 games, and then you have night games. They're down to the minute on this stuff. Believe me when I tell you. When we sit there in production meetings and every single week, and the home team along with the NFL is putting down a packet of stuff, every minute detail of everything starting 3 hours before the game starts of exactly what is going to happen and what better happen at exactly what time. Everything from the anthem to the kick to you name it. Timeouts, this break, that break, 30-second timeout, 15-second break, blah, blah, blah. They got it down to a science. College football, conversely, now their rules are a little bit different, where they stop the clock on every first down. Now that can be very exciting if you're a team trying to go down the field and try to win a game at the end. Because every time you get that first down, it gives you enough time to stop the clock. You can get your guys up to the line of scrimmage, they start the clock, and off you go. But the college game last year started to get really worried about the length of games because almost every single play in college football anymore, by and large, is a pass play. So you're getting 100 and some odd passes thrown in almost every college game. And now instead of going 3 hours, which the NFL goes, the college game is getting into 3.5, 340, 345, and they're really worried about it. Their replay system is set up in such a way where they can review anything anytime.
College football, it feels like you can watch the kickoff of a college football game, go and live your life for a Saturday, and then come back, and you're still able to catch the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. I mean, when you invest in it, when you say I'm going to watch every play of so-and-so college football game, you are investing your day into that game.
Yep.
Because these games, I mean, you talk about a college game that goes into overtime, you're looking at 4+ hours.
Yep.
That is a long time.
And I just don't think there's an appetite out there as much as people love football. If you start putting in, and then where's the line on what that eye in the sky can actually look at? I mean, would you want, let's pretend a second, that the Bengals were the one that got away with a hold or 2 holding penalties. And Burrow races around the outside. He gets drilled out of bounds by some Royals, by some Chiefs player, and all of a sudden the Bengals kick the field goal and they're going to the Super Bowl. How would you feel if an eye in the sky could take a look at that play after it just happened and they could say, nope, we're waving off the penalty on the guy for hitting the quarterback out of bounds because before he got to that point, there were 2 holding calls, and we're going to overrule, we're going to decide that there were 2 holding penalties on the play, even though no one on the field of play called a penalty. Do you want that happening? Right? You want him to all of a sudden be able to determine that, okay, quarterback was back to pass. He's under heavy pressure. You know he's just got to get rid of the ball. But 25 yards down the field, the eye in the sky can see, Von Bell holding on to the jersey of Stephon Diggs. Forget the fact that the quarterback wasn't going to throw it to him. Forget the fact that the quarterback might be getting sacked. Forget the fact that it might have turned out that the guy actually got hit, the quarterback, fumbles the ball, and your team recovers. But now the eye in the sky is going to say, wait a minute, forget all of that. We're going to call that hold 25 yards down the field.
I have a random question. It's a little off topic. How many refs are actually on the field, a football field at once? I know there's the line on either side. There's a line judge for each side. There's one in the backfield for the quarterback to watch for holdings. And then there's another one in the backfield for the defense. Is there 5 or is there just 4?
Normally an 8-man crew.
8-man crew.
Normally an 8-man crew.
How many are on the field at once?
There are 8 different positions for an officiating crew for each NFL game. You have the referee, the umpire, the line judge, the side judge, the down judge, the back judge, the field judge, and then you have the replay official.
Okay.
I don't know if so technically you have 7 on the field because the replay official is an official but is upstairs in the box.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like in baseball, they add 2 more umpires for a Major League Baseball game. During the course of the season, baseball, as all of you virtually know, they have a home plate umpire, first base, second base, third base. In the postseason, they add 2 umpires down the right field line and the left field line. So you expand that number for the postseason. I don't think football does that.
No, I can't. I was gonna say maybe you add another a ref or 2, but that's 7 on the field. I don't know.
To go back to the situation here at the end of the Bengals game, when we play the what if game, and I talk about the what if, shoulda, coulda, woulda a lot. If they had called the holds, and I could be misremembering this, but if they had called the holds, it would have offset the Osai penalty which would have set up a 60-yard field goal, but there still would have been 8 seconds left on the clock.
Yes.
So the Chiefs still could have ran, a 6-second play.
Well, they were out of timeouts.
Yeah, but they could have gone. They could have tried one pass to
They
the
could have.
sideline.
They could have.
Could have tried a pass to the sideline. 15. You can easily pick up 15, 20 yards in 6 seconds.
Well, you're not going to get 15 or 20 in 6 seconds. No chance.
Guy to
you
the
might
sideline?
You might get 8.
Yeah, I don't think
You're not going to get 15. No way. No way.
You'll run out of time. You'll
run out of time.
You run the risk of running out of time, but you could throw a pass to the sideline in 6 seconds.
And it would be a 4-step route straight out. As soon as the quarterback touches it, bang, lets it go out of his hand. You get 8 yards and you take your chances.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because you got to give yourself a chance for the kick.
But I'm just saying that it's not like there would have been 1 second left and the Chiefs would have had to have kicked a 60-yard field goal. They could have still gotten closer
one more play off.
gotten one more play off into field goal range.
Yes, they could have.
It's all the things that you think about and tinker with in your head when you try to make yourself
those
sleep
what
at
ifs,
night. Yeah.
Well, it's pointed out by Emperor Starscream that, and this is a great point, remember how bad the replacement refs were. It could be a lot worse. Well, it could be a lot worse, but, that's a valid point. But I would make the argument that, we're not in this to keep it from being a lot worse. We're in it to get it better. And they need to figure out a way to get it better. And I have to be honest with you. Look, I don't know what they're using, what metrics they're using, because, what they do is, for those that may not understand this, they basically form in the postseason a quote-unquote all-star crew. So whatever evaluation they're using for all of those different positions I just gave you. So over the course of a year, Paul will be working on his crew as the line judge. Casey will be working on his crew as the back judge. Brandon's working on his crew as a side judge. I'm working on my crew as a referee. And then what they do is they grade individually, not crews. They do it to crews too. Because in that way, every single week it comes out, if you know what crew is working your game and the crews are going to stay together during the regular season, you'd be able to say, okay, well, this crew, which has worked 14 weeks and you've got them in week 15, they have more pass interference penalties than any other crew in the league. They have more offensive holds than any other crew in the league. But when you get to the postseason, these guys have been individually graded, and so they put together an all-star crew, if you will. Allegedly, an all-star crew. But it certainly doesn't seem like it adds up to that to me. Because I tell you, there have been a couple of guys that have been working especially as a referee, where I just say to myself, it's hard to believe that's the guy or one of two guys that are your two best referees in the NFL. We're going to work on getting Doc lined up here. We'll take a break, and you can finish checking out whatever you need to check out. Ham and Eggers, can you take it here, or you want to go to a break?
We got it. We got you. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
The first thing we're going to do here, since we've been talking about the Bengals a lot, I'm going to go ahead and give our guys at Encore a little shout out here. The Bengals Report is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing models to improve efficiency and what, Casey? Productivity. That's right. Visit Encore.tech. The path to innovation begins here. Also, as you see right here, I think we need a new pack of them because I don't know if we have any more outside. We might. I didn't see if we had a new shipment in. There is a new premium alkaline water, and it is called Pani. That is P-A-H-H-N-I. See it right here. I'll make sure that this is screwed on. It was not screwed on tight. I would have just ruined everything that we have here in front of us. Pani. It is made right here in Hamilton, Ohio. P-A-H-H-N-I. It uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that many other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water that is also, quote, the best tasting water in the world, end quote. Visit their website at P-A-H-H-N-I water.com. That is P-A-H-H-N-I water.com to see where you can buy this great tasting water. That's our plugs for the day.
That's our plugs for the day.
Bearcats report, as always, thanks to Encore and then to Pawnee as well. If you're going to bet with Betfred Sportsbook. You see all the lines that are down here at the bottom of the screen. Those are updated lines. Casey and I go through those lines every single day. About 10 minutes before we go on the air, we put those lines in, so that way they are the most updated lines that you have. The Super Bowl's been all over the place. It's down to 1.5 right now. The total is at 50.5. I'm glad it's at 50.5, and I hope that the game plays out that way because
you want a lot of scoring.
You want scoring in this game between these teams. I think it'd be a good game if it ends up going up toward that total. I'm trying to think. We have Betfred, Pawnee. Anybody else?
We're gonna have boxed lunch later.
Yes, boxed lunch later today.
Trace is out, but we have all the regular cast: Reed, Brandon, Paul, myself. We're all gonna be on right after the show, and it's gonna be a good show. We're gonna give out some picks. We haven't done the vault in a while. We haven't picked.
Haven't gone in the vault in a while. Let's get in the vault.
And you know what? Maybe finally I'll have enough grit to put something in the chat because I've been a little hot as of late. Okay. I've been a little hot as of late. So
Doc, let's get to Doc.
Let's get to Doc. Paul Doherty, the morningline.substack.com, legendary columnist for the Cincinnati Enquirer over 30 years here in greater Cincinnati. Doc, we talked a lot during the season about Tom Brady and how he was playing, wasn't playing, a lot of issues off the field, well documented, so on and so forth. But I thought you wrote a great column at the morningline.substack.com the other day about Tom Brady and it's hard to believe it's actually going to happen. We're assuming it's going to happen, that he will stay retired this time, unlike last year. Were you surprised that he walked away?
No. I think one thing he doesn't want to put up with more than anything else is losing. They made the playoffs, but they weren't winners. He didn't look great. He had okay numbers, but I think he's come to the realization that he's going to put himself in physical harm if he continues to play. He's not going to be able to build anybody's team into a winner at age 45 or 46. And I think this time he's just at peace with the decision. I wasn't surprised that he walked away, and I think he means it this time.
I think he does too. And, look, I don't know. I'm sure there was a time when people watched, and we were talking about it the other day, if you grew up and you're old enough to remember watching, Babe Ruth, or you're old enough to remember Willie Mays or Mickey Mantle, or, and then in later years, this guy after that guy, can there be another player like this guy? You dare not to say it, but in this day and age, and you talk about it all the time about how, the NFL likes to give everybody a fighting chance, and they're fiscally set up in such a way. I find it hard to believe there's going to be some quarterback that comes down the pike that's going to be able to say they won 17 division championships and 10 conference championships. Forget the 7 Super Bowls, but just division titles and conference championship games alone.
I think he retired. He's retiring that trophy in football. I don't think you'll ever see another quarterback like him. First of all, you're almost certainly not going to see another guy play until he's age 45. I mean, it wasn't too long ago. If a guy was still playing at 35, he was old. Tom Brady plays till he's 45 years old, and he wins an MVP at age 43. That's simply not going to happen again. Certainly not in our lifetimes. And I wrote this the other day. He is the clear GOAT of the NFL in a way that I don't know that there's a clear GOAT in any other sport to this extent. For every Tiger, there's a Jack Nicklaus. For every Michael Jordan, there's a LeBron or a Kareem or even a Bill Russell. You're talking about winning. For every Ali, there's a Joe Louis. For every Wayne Gretzky, there's a Gordie Howe. I don't know that there is for every Tom Brady, there is a.
Mm-hmm.
I think he closed the book on that. Time will tell, but I don't see anybody eclipsing what Brady did.
I want to ask you a question that I was thinking about the other day, and I ran it by you to think about this last night. I didn't get your answer last night when we were texting back and forth. But it got me to thinking, at the end of the day, do you view this season, or should the Bengals view this season as a successful season? Now, from their record, 10-game win streak, all that kind of stuff, yeah, I get it. But you went to the Super Bowl last year. Clearly, this team's goal from the start was to not only get to the Super Bowl, but win the Super Bowl. As we know, they're not in the Super Bowl. Successful year?
No, hell yeah. I don't subscribe to that notion that it's all or bust. Our goal was to get to the Super Bowl. We didn't get there, therefore. No, they had a great year, and they were able to do something that the Rams couldn't do, and that a lot of teams who have been in the Super Bowl one year are unable to replicate the next. And who knows? I mean, we're talking about the officials, but the injuries at the end of the year to the linemen, they don't get those guys hurt. It might be a different ball game. I thought this team was better than last year's team. I thought it showed growth in a lot of areas, including Joe Burrow. No, sure you want to get to the Super Bowl again and win it, but they like to say that winning is hard in the NFL, Tom, right? which amuses me, because if winning is hard and half of the teams do it every week, then losing better is probably hard too, right? I mean, 16-16, but they should amend that and say getting to the Super Bowl and winning is hard. Maintaining a level of performance that makes you in the photo for the Super Bowl is hard. And I would never sell short what they did this year, a year after getting to the Super Bowl. So no, in no way did I think this was an unsuccessful season.
You're a big golf guy. You work at a golf course. You clean out the carts. You're one of the all-time cart cleaners, from what I understand. One of the all-time greats. I got to ask you, though.
I'm the Tom Brady of golf cart cleaners.
All right, I got to ask you. I tell you, a sport that's starting to lose me is golf, and I'll tell you why. There are so many great young players out there. I mean, going all the way down to 14 and 15-year-olds. I mean, my son plays high school golf, and some of the guys I see out there playing, it's mind-boggling. But, you one of the most famous tournaments in the world every year. It's not a major, but it's certainly one of the most famous, without a doubt the most picturesque, at Pebble Beach. That got underway yesterday. Doc, I'm sitting here looking at the leaderboard, and I mean, you got to go, and I know it's only one round, but you got to go 30 deep to even find a name on there that outside of the hardcore golf fan has ever heard of. I don't think it's good for the sport.
You mean that there's so many good young players that you don't recognize their names?
No, I'm saying that we don't. It's not the guys that you come to know. Now, we can come to know them. If they were to win this tournament, you'll recognize that name the next time. But I'm saying, there's not that group or even a player when the tournament starts. Liv coming in now, all these other kinds of things going on, where it used to be Tiger would set foot on the course to these tournaments. Mickelson would set foot on the course for these tournaments, going back to the Greg Normans and all these other guys through the years. Now, I mean, you getting excited about Jordan Spieth?
I mean, you're asking a golf guy. Yeah, I like to watch Jordan Spieth play. I like watching Rory McIlroy.
Yep.
Some of the young guys are pretty compelling. I mean, every generation of players has their stars. I miss Dustin Johnson, who's a live guy. I miss
Yep.
Phil, who's a live guy. But I mean, I don't see it as a down thing. It'll take a while for the younger stars to develop and for us to get to know them and like them in the way that we like some of the other guys. I think we were pretty spoiled by having Tiger and Phil for so long, you know. But I have no doubt that golf will rebound, and I think you'll be back to saying, well, I can't wait to watch so-and-so play. I mean, I get your point. Tiger left a huge void, and Liv kind of chopped away at the star power of the tour. But I think there's enough young guys that eventually you'll say, wow, so-and-so's playing today, I want to watch, you know. So-and-so's teeing off at 10 this morning, I want to go see him if I'm at the course. I'm a lover of golf, though, you understand. And I can watch Pebble Beach and not care who I'm watching, essentially.
Yeah.
Unless it's Bill Murray. I'm sick of Bill Murray. Or Ray Romano. Please no Ray Romano anymore. But I can just watch that tournament for the scenery. You know, I watch anybody. I don't care who it is. On that par 3 on the front. I think it's number 6, the little par 3 out over the bay. And then the next hole is this beautiful par 4 across the bluff there. Man, the holes there, some of them are spectacular. I'll watch it just for that. I don't care who's playing. But I get your point. If you're a casual fan, and you must be if you're not even interested in Jordan Spieth. If you're a casual fan,
I was just throwing that name out there. The point I'm ultimately making here is like a good play, a good musical, a good movie, a great sport, on and on and on and on. You need protagonist and you need antagonist. And right now, in my opinion, it's so homogenized that you don't have either one of those. It's not that they aren't good guys. I'm sure they're all probably pretty decent guys. But there's no villain. There's no, this or that or rivalry or any of those kinds of things. We're on a week-to-week basis, and you look at who's contending on a week-to-week basis, it is infrequent that you ever see the same name twice on a leaderboard at the end of a 4-day tournament anymore. And I don't think that is appealing even to a guy like me who, look, I'm like everybody else. I love being able to settle in on a hot summer day and on a Sunday afternoon and sit there with my son or just sit there and kill time or whatever it might be watching a great golf match come to an end. It's fantastic. Problem is, I don't know anybody anymore.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Back when I started in this business in like the mid-'80s, the pre-Tiger, pre-Phil, even like pre-David Duval, remember how good he was for a while, people were saying the same thing. Making jokes about the clothes that these guys wore, the Sansa belts and the polyester and all that stuff. The bland leading the bland all the way to the bank. And then Tiger and Phil and to a lesser extent Duval happened. Sergio Garcia happened. So maybe we're just in one of those lulls now where you're just waiting for the next big thing to pop up. But it will, because it always has.
All right. Before we let you go, we're starting this thing now, and you share with me that you are a big TV guy when it comes to some of these streaming shows.
Yeah.
And so give me, Doc, if you've had time to think about it, because we're all weighing in on this over the next number of days. What are your top 5 shows that you would recommend for people to watch if they haven't watched them yet?
They're all the same ones that everybody's saying, I'll bet. I think all-time number 1, you got to hang with it early, maybe a little slow, but hang with it and you'll be rewarded, was The Wire.
Yep.
The Wire was the best TV show ever made. Sopranos, number 2. Breaking Bad, number 3. Love Friday Night Lights.
Great show. Yep, great show.
And, Friday Night Lights and Sons of Anarchy. I'll throw you a curveball. I thought Sons of Anarchy was great.
Yeah,
all the way through.
I watched it all the way through too. I tell you what though, Doc. I mean, that's a dynamite top 5. But you weren't with us on the show yesterday. The one that I just finished, and I had buddies of mine telling me about how great it was, and I don't hear it very well. And so, when I first started watching it years ago, I didn't have the closed captioning thing, didn't know how to do it, whatever. But once I figured it out, Peaky Blinders. You watch
I've heard of that. I made it through half of the first episode and I turned it off.
That's what I did. The first go-round, I did the same thing because, you know, the native tongue and all that kind of thing, you really got to – I'm telling you, it's as good as it gets. I'd highly recommend it.
Okay. Well,
all right.
I'm tired. I have a whole hell of a lot else to do. You know, I write the morning line, I watch TV.
And walk the dog.
Yeah, and walk the dog and hose off golf carts.
There you go. I mean, what else is there in life? Does your wife ever come around, or she's kind of stays away?
I'm limbering up the trigger finger for the golf carts as we speak. It's getting to be about that time of year.
Well, not according to Puxkatani Paul yesterday, so that's a different story for 7 more.
Oh, that is such a racket. When in the hell does spring start in the middle of March anyway? Ever? Never, right?
No,
so he goes back in, sees the shadow, we're going to have 6 weeks more of winter. Well, no kidding. We always do, right? They should do this like 3 weeks from now. Have them see a shadow then, and then we're really in trouble. But now, of course, we're going to have 6 more weeks of winter. It's February.
The start of
I got
February.
a problem with that.
I don't blame you.
I got a problem.
Doc, thanks for your time, brother. Have a good day today. Have a good weekend.
All right, Thom. See ya.
All right, buddy. Be well. So those are 5. Have you guys seen all 5 of those?
So I've never seen The Wire.
I tell you what, man. The first – now, I got to go back and go to season – I think it went 5. But I remember when these shows first came out, and I was traveling with a bunch of guys on my NFL crew that were really into all of these shows. And they were watching them, waiting until the next week for the next one to come out and all this kind of stuff. And so I decided that I was going to try to, take a run at watching one of these. And so we had about 9 or 10 guys that were in our production crew of our NFL team. And so I had them all write down on a piece of paper their top 5 shows. And these guys were hardcore TV show watchers. I said, give me your top 5. The one that rated out the highest on collectively, if you were to take the average, by far the one that was number 1 was The Wire. I watched the first 2 seasons. It is lights out.
Yeah, I've heard, and especially being in Baltimore and working in Baltimore 2 summers ago, I hear so much about it, and I have just never got what service is it on? I guess I could look it up.
Well, you can find it now. I can't remember which one you can find it on now, but anyway, the interesting thing about that show is those of you who don't know, it's about crime in Baltimore. But what they do is every season they take on a different sort of topic. So in the first one, it's all about drugs, the dealing of drugs, consumption of drugs, devastation of drugs, crime of drugs, all that. Then the next season, in no particular order, they'll go into government corruption. And then the next one, they'll go into whatever it might be. So you've got the same primary cast of characters, but then you're introduced in a new season to some others depending on what the theme is for that given year. It's really good. You seen it, Casey?
I've not seen it.
Highly recommend it.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Highly recommend it.
Breaking Bad.
HBO Max, I'm told, is what it's
HBO
on.
Max is just the best streaming service out there. I feel like every time it's a show or a movie or something I want to watch, it's HBO Max. Netflix is pretty good. Yellowstone, we're talking about shows we like.
Oh, boy.
The first 3.5 seasons of Yellowstone are just the best.
Phenomenal.
The middle part of season 4 to the end of season 4, and then now this past first half of season 5 is, you can tell they're like setting up the rest of the show. But the first 3.5 seasons of Yellowstone are just off the charts.
Well, I still think it's lights out.
I think it's good, but I think you can tell that it needs to hit that next gear because there was so much. It feels like the show has now become a different show. There was so much carnage and there was so much fighting and everything in the first 3.5 seasons, and now it's become, I don't know, more tame.
Okay.
Give me the carnage.
Although there's
Thom.
nothing tame about Beth.
Yeah, but I feel like they're relying too much on Beth. I feel like it's become all Beth now, and let's get back to what we were doing. Let's get back to our roots, man.
All right.
Let's get back to the roots.
Now, see, I have never seen because people shared with me. I've never seen Breaking Bad.
Oh.
And see, the stories, again, that I'll pick other people's brain, they'll start talking about it and tell me about it is it like, you have a hard time going to sleep at night because this guy is he's in such deep you-know-what all the time, seemingly, that it's just got you just completely wound up. Is that not fair?
We should do that for the offseason, for the Bengals offseason. You should watch Breaking Bad. I've seen it all the way through. I've seen it once, and I've mostly seen it twice. Go back. Have you seen Breaking Bad? All right. We'll watch Breaking Bad. Okay. We should do that.
All right, we'll do that.
And we'll casually go through it through the offseason.
So what does this mean? Sir Boy Wonder, who's our good friend, we love Sir Boy Wonder. He says, Thom, you are like Walter White.
Oh, you got to watch Breaking Bad.
Is that the main character?
That's Bryan Cranston.
That dude's a great actor.
Oh, yeah.
He's a great actor.
That show is consistently, if you look up best TV shows of all time, if Breaking Bad isn't one, it might be 2 or 3. It's always right there at the top. And the reason it's so good is because the finale, if you think back to shows, like I always go back to Seinfeld. Seinfeld's my favorite show of all time. Seinfeld's finale was terrible. It was awful. They shoehorned in way too many things into one episode, and it was terrible. The Breaking Bad finale is one of the best finales of any show of all time.
But then they spun off to that Saul thing, right?
Well, Better Call Saul, and that's good.
That's a precursor to Breaking Bad,
yeah,
right?
So,
but even though it came after.
So Better Call Saul kind of helps you understand. I haven't seen all of Better Call Saul, but it kind of helps you understand and put into perspective everything that's going on in Breaking Bad. And then they also made a spin-off Netflix movie of what happens to Walter or Bryan Cranston's sidekick.
Okay.
And so the whole Breaking Bad universe is good, but Breaking Bad is 5 seasons. Episodes are like 50 minutes. It's on Netflix. Episodes are like 50 minutes. I got through it in a couple of months.
So what the hell does this mean? Sir Boy Wonder says it's a compliment that he's saying I'm like Walter White.
You got to watch the show.
Dude, how can that be a compliment? The guy's a drug dealer, right?
But
he's making meth, right? Isn't that the premise of the show? The guy's making meth?
I mean,
he's dying and he's making meth, and right?
I will be interested to hear at the end of the show if you deem
this is like a Dumbledore.
If you deem Walter White a leader of men. Because I don't know, but there might be a world. I don't know. Probably not, given the fact that he's dealing drugs, creating drugs.
But he's doing it to save his family, if I remember right?
Yeah, there are ulterior motives to it.
To all this, and
I'll be interested to see what your thoughts on Mr. White are.
Okay, all right, okay. Yeah, this has all the makings of Dumbledore.
I still think Fumbledore is just the best. The best spin-off.
Wasn't that Everett that was on?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everett, you're here with us all the time. You're with us right now. He calls him Dumbledore. Finishing up this thing on the TV thing, because we're going to have Scott Springer coming up here. I will tell everybody, if you don't want to get fully invested into one show, and I've talked about this before, if you don't want to get fully invested in some 2, 3, 4, 7 season sort of series, one season, it's like 10, 11 episodes. It's from the book written by John Le Carre. It's called The Night Manager. Remember the dude from House?
Yes.
Remember that guy?
Yep.
He's the antagonist in this whole deal. And it is a...
Hugh Laurie?
Yes.
Or Lowry or whatever.
Fantastic. One season. And that's all they did because they did it based on the book. So they start it just like the book, and they finish it at the end of the book. It is unbelievable. Night Manager.
If you want to do one season shows, you ever watch Mayor of Easttown?
Yes.
The Kate Winslet show?
Yeah.
Another great
Excellent.
One season show.
Excellent.
Can't do a second season of that, but that was good. Casey, you seen any of these?
Nope.
It's all right. We'll get you on the train.
Casey, what are you watching? Are you watching like CO2 emissions documentaries and things like that?
No documentaries. No, so recently the shows that I've been watching, I've just finished up The Boys on.
I've heard that's good.
That's really good. I started watching The Last of Us based off of a video game. I loved the game and I'm loving the show. Before that though, I watched like Euphoria. I've watched like 13 Reasons Why. I watched a lot of stuff that my fiance likes to watch. I'll pull up something on my phone and watch something on YouTube, or watch a football game or a basketball game or something.
Gotcha.
But the ones that I would recommend that I like to just have on the background, like stuff like The Office, Parks and Rec, Community, those like kind of like slapstick
Little on the lighter side.
Little on the lighter side,
Yeah.
lighter side, but I do want to get into like Breaking Bad and stuff like that. For some reason, I just like when I see it, I go like, oh man, if I get into it now, it's a long way. And then when I'm done, I'm gonna be in that show hole again. Like that's like I'm saving them.
Breaking Bad takes
Oh,
you.
dude,
it's just
trust
tough.
me, you getting married, you'll have plenty of time to be sitting around by yourself watching television shows. Trust me.
Breaking
She'll be in
Bad.
the other room doing her own thing. You can just sit there and settle in.
Just lock in, right?
Breaking Bad takes you a couple months. It would be a good. I don't know if with March Madness coming up. I don't know.
I know,
when we
right?
start.
Like
I don't know when we start. Well, after March Madness, you get into baseball season. You watch one before the Reds game. Knock an episode out.
Yeah, it's a commitment.
It is a
Nate,
commitment.
Nate put it just. Yeah, and Invincible, Everett. I really love Invincible. If we're talking about like some of the animated shows.
Ozark.
Oh,
yeah.
now,
Ozark
Jim,
is really
that's
good.
a great show.
Ozark.
Great show.
Awesome show.
Yes.
Jason Bateman is.
Casey, that's the one that I would recommend of all of these ones
I've watched
we've talked
Ozark
about.
before.
Oh, you've watched it, okay.
Oh, yeah.
But I have not finished it.
Oh, well, you got to start all over again because
start.
it's really good.
I started like right in the middle of season 2 or something like that when they just finally got into the casino boat.
Yep.
Yeah. Riverboat.
Yeah, Riverboat. Yeah.
Gamblers.
Riverboat
It all
Gambler.
comes back to gambling.
And it was really good when I joined in that, so I got to rewatch it.
Yeah, you really got to get caught up though, and kind of come back from the beginning of that because
I see everybody suggesting Tulsa King. I think that's the one with Sly Stallone. I think
that's a new one
I
with
think.
Sylvester Stallone. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Where he's a mobster leaving New York City or Jersey or wherever, and he goes to Omaha, right?
I think so. That's
Or Tulsa. I'm sorry, Tulsa. He goes to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've seen that. No, sorry. I've heard of it. I have not seen it. But yeah, Tom, you start Breaking Bad. Do it. To watch like one episode a night, and I'm telling you, because the thing about Breaking Bad is you're hooked from the first episode. It doesn't, some shows like The Office takes you after the first
Even
season.
Yellowstone takes you a couple to get going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you watch the first episode of Breaking Bad and you realize what's going on, you're hooked.
Okay. My last suggestion, and no one's going to talk about this one because the show was just so long ago. 24. Oh, that is a great,
fantastic show.
It's great. I feel like every season is just, I know it's kind of like the same plot every season. Like he's got to save the world, but Jack Bauer's just a badass. I almost cursed on the show.
Well, it's like Homeland. It's a lot like that show Homeland. That's a great show.
What about Jack Ryan?
Jack Ryan's solid. Now they just came out with a new season.
I know. Have you seen it?
I have not.
No. My dad watched it. I haven't seen it yet.
I have not.
All right.
But, okay. It says here, Emperor says Breaking Bad really lulls in seasons 2 and 3.
I mean, compared maybe to the other seasons, but even a lull in Breaking Bad is still very good, in my opinion, at least.
Jay Queen's Gambit says on Netflix, or Jay says Queen's Gambit on Netflix is the one series show you didn't know you needed to watch.
Very good show.
House of Cards, big league show.
House of Cards lost me after
I
like
love
2
that
seasons.
All right, let's get to Scott Springer. He's kind enough to join us. Congratulations, young man. You were doing the high school gig there for a long, long time and doing a phenomenal job covering high school sports, which are so popular here in greater Cincinnati, but now on the UCB. So congratulations. Well-deserved and well-earned.
Yeah, I'm really going to miss waiting for the custodian to knock me out of some of these stadiums at night. It's nice to have a little time with a nice computer stats in front of you and all the amenities of college football and the pros and all that. So good to be back.
And my son's really going to miss you. and having a chance to talk to you after lacrosse games this spring. He was talking about it, in fact, last night when I told him you were coming on the show today. All right, let me ask you.
Mighty Luke.
I certainly will. I want to start with the basketball team and the program. I'm sure you're asked this by friends. You're asked this about, maybe colleagues that are coming through the American Conference and so on and so forth. I know this is a very general question. But after years and years and years, Scott, of Bob Huggins and later Mick Cronin taking this program to the NCAA tournament year after year, it was a given before the season ever started. You knew they were going. This week, and we'll get into the team this year in a minute, but how do you feel about now having a chance to be around it regularly, the sort of state of the UC basketball program?
It's kind of similar to when Mick took over and Bob had left and the program had been kind of decimated and Mick built it back up. And you had to have some patience there for a while because you were in the Big East and UC's about to go into the Big 12, which is the top league in basketball, in my opinion. You look at the net and UC is like fourth in the net in the American and UCF is third in the net in the American, and both of them would be dead last in the Big 12. In the net. So you're about to go into some really stiff competition. So I think you're going to have some patience, and it's not easy to have because, let's face it, we've been spoiled around here. The guys you mentioned did pretty good, and you went to the tournament with regularity. I went to school there, and it was Ed Badger and Tony Yates, and, you're throwing a parade in town if you get to the NIT.
Yep. Well, okay. Well, what about then this year's team? Look, they've won 15 games. They necessarily haven't beaten any good teams, so to speak. They made a great run. You were there covering the game the other day down in Houston. Realistically, for the rest of this season, what's a realistic expectation for what they can accomplish, what they reasonably can accomplish, and should UC fans be able to say, like you said, some patience, okay, it was still a good year?
Yeah, they had 18 wins last year, 18 and 15. They're at 15 and 8. Realistically, they've got a decent chance at 20. Used to be 20 wins, got you somewhere. Where that is this year, let's be honest, NCAA, you're probably going to have to win the league tournament, which is possible, but you're an underdog. And then do you get in the NIT or do you go to the CBI because there's cost involved in things like that? But I think Wes Miller's building a program and trying to get better talent in. And you've got Jizzle James on deck. You got Rayvon Griffith on deck. They signed a JUCO point guard yesterday, Davion Thomas, Day Thomas, and he's out of Texas. If you go back in history, UC's had some pretty good luck with junior college point guards out of Texas, if you remember Nick Van Exel, and you would.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying he's Nick Van Exel, but, you have to trust in Wes Miller's ability to get kids. He got Landers Nolly out of the transfer portal. He reminds me the most of one of the old Bearcats of the current Bearcats. He's a guy that would fit in with any of that crew, and he's very talented. And, hopefully he stays another year. It's like every sport, though. You're recruiting your own kids at the end of the year. You got to get new kids. You got to keep your old kids. This job has changed totally because in addition to just covering games or finding a neat story, you got to keep up with who's in and who's out because of all this going on with the portal. It's a new game.
Speaking of Nolly, this is a young man, like you said. He's not totally tipped everybody off as to whether or not he's going to return for what would be his final year of eligibility. But, look, I'm not the young man. I don't know his family situation. I don't know their financials. I don't know any of that kind of stuff. But it seems it would be a logical choice for him to come back next year, be the returning leading scorer on a team and a chance to be part of a better team even next year, right?
That would be my advice if you would ask me. You're talking about what's the end. I don't know if we're ever going to see that anymore. You're seeing a lot of one and dones and the transfer kids in, but I think not only could benefit by staying, there's more he can add to his game. Wes Miller will say that. He's got a lot of potential. Victor Locken's got a lot of potential, things that he can add to his game. You look at it, you can pretty much bring back all of your starters except for DeJulius.
And look, that's something to get excited about. And I imagine these young players that are getting a little bit more playing time this year, that we'll continue to see them get more and more minutes as this season moves forward. But, Wes strikes me as the kind of guy, Scott, that, look, he's not going to start carving minutes out of David DeJulius's game, because this kid has busted his tail in this program since the day he walked in the door. You got to let that kid just go play, if he wants to, every minute of every game, right?
Oh, yeah, and he's one, come senior night, you really need to applaud for that dude, because he came from Michigan. He had some struggles, and, he stuck it out. He's 13 points away. If he gets 13 tomorrow against UCF, he's hit 1,000 points at UC. 55 people have done that. That's a pretty good club to be in. He's a great leader. If he's not hitting his shots, he's really dishing the ball great. He had 9 assists the last game, and he knows that at the next level, he's 6 feet tall. He's going to have to be able to pass. It's not necessarily just popping shots and driving the lane and all that. He can hit the shots, but he's done a lot better passing the ball here lately.
Shift gears real quick, and I know that by the time you got both feet into the job, covering UC, it was basketball season. But right in the middle of basketball season, they made a coaching change for the football team.
Right.
They started quarterback, because I brought up the other day this whole quarterback thing. And if I'm throwing you, a curveball here, because you are in the middle of covering basketball, and I certainly respect that. You'll be on the football beat when the football time comes around. But
hey, life's
the
about
whole
curveballs. Let her rip.
All right, let her rip. We'll throw the big bad bender. Well, how does the quarterback thing shake out ultimately, do you think?
Well, they get Emory Jones out of Arizona State, and he had a pretty good career at Florida. Stat-wise, the Gators struggled a little bit. Arizona State was not very good last year, but Emory Jones is an accomplished player, and Scott Satterfield said we need a guy with experience that's been there. So he's got a lot of big-time football snaps under his belt. Okay, now he is more of a runner. It's not that he can't throw, but he's you look at what Scott did at Louisville. You had Malik Cunningham, and he was running the ball some. So Emory falls in that category. Evan Prater would fall in that category if he stays, because Evan's probably going to go through spring ball and have to make a decision. I don't know, but that's just my guess. But then you got Ben Bryant coming back. Now, Ben has proven to be a pretty good thrower. So you've got two different types of quarterbacks. Most teams need two. It'd be nice if they both stayed. We'll have to see how it shakes out. But again, the way this portal works out, you're probably going to see kids go through spring ball, and if depending on their playing time, they may up and leave, or you may have new ones coming in and all that. But you have to say Emory Jones is probably the leader right now. But Ben Bryant has to be considered because he's put some pretty good numbers on, and even in Eastern Michigan the year before took them to a bowl game and did pretty well. Other than Evan, Brady Lichtenberg, pretty good arm from what I've heard. He only got one snap in the bowl game, but let's face it, the bowl game was kind of a debacle, and that's a whole nother topic where you have kids playing in bowl games that didn't play during the year, and that doesn't sit well with me, but no one asked.
Look, I don't know how many people knew Satterfield well at all in and around the offices of the UC football offices, the athletic department offices, all those kinds of things. He's replacing a guy who took this program to places I'm not sure anybody saw coming in Luke Fickell. What's sort of the vibe on him now that he's been around a couple of months, 2 or 3 months? He was crazy busy in the portal stuff. You're obviously never stopping recruiting. He's probably having to watch endless amounts of film to get very familiar with the guys that he's going to be coaching this upcoming season. What are you hearing? What's kind of the vibe on him a couple months in the job?
Well, he's certainly trying. I know yesterday he was down at the Senior Bowl seeing the Bearcat players that were down there and also some of his Louisville players. And today he spoke to the Ohio High School Football Coaches Association. So, and he's made the rounds with Kerry Combs and all the local high schools, as have most of the coaches. One upside, they've invested more into the recruiting department, the personnel. You now have a general manager. You have so many people that are out there searching for talent, be it portal or high school or JUCO or wherever. And they've invested in that, and you have to going into the Big 12. And so all I can tell you about, I've already talked to him, once where it was a non-interview situation. Seemed wonderful. It's fun to talk to. Good guy. I hear good things about him. Again, it's going to be a big question mark, like basketball. We're going into a new league. At UC, I should say. I shouldn't say we because your dad would lecture me. But yeah, UC is going into a new league, and you got to hope for the best, but be prepared that day in and day out. These are tough games, tougher than you're used to, and so maybe. Looking at the schedule, when that schedule came out, it looks favorable to me.
I agree with you 100%. I feel like their schedule was all things considered. You're not playing Texas. You're not playing TCU. And I don't know if TCU will be as good as they were last year, but they got to the Final Four this year. You're not playing either one of them. And on paper, the best team, even though I think Kansas State might end up being the best team, but on paper, the best team theoretically is coming here in Oklahoma.
Right. And UC has had experience playing some of those teams. Wasn't that long ago Oklahoma came to then Paul Brown Stadium, and UC had them on the ropes, had a chance to win. Baylor, I think, is beatable. They have beaten Kansas. When I was doing the games on radio with Dan and Jim and Paul Keels, even before that, we were at Kansas, played there. Kansas came here, and UC smoked them one year. Actually, I can give you a little historical perspective, which also shows how old I am, but I tend to do this. That particular game against Kansas, Gino Guidugli was the quarterback. They wiped him out. I don't remember the score offhand, but I'm guessing 34-6, something like that. There was a young man that came in, and they said, Gino, this is this young man from Woodward. He wants to be a receiver here. We think he has a good future. I'd like you to meet Antoine Peak. Antoine Peak, who came in at 6'3", 180, and went on to become a linebacker defensive line in the NFL. So the Bearcats have turned some players into big-time players. I just wrote something on the Kelseys. There's two examples there. Connor Barwin, more examples. There have been kids that have come here. Troy Evans was a walk-on, made the NFL. Kids have come to UC and turned out to be pretty decent players when people thought they wouldn't be. So you got to hope for more of those as you go into this league.
Absolutely. Scott, we appreciate your time, my friend. Thanks so much.
And another series is Your Honor, starring Bryan Cranston, also a Breaking Bad.
I actually watched the first season of Your Honor, and I saw where the second season just came out.
Yeah, I'm 3 episodes in. I'm waiting for the next one.
So the start of season 2 is good?
So far, yeah. It's a different angle, obviously.
Yeah.
But, yeah. We'll see. But he's done most of what he's done is pretty good. He also, I think he was behind the old show Sneaky Pete, which was a good one on Amazon Prime.
I'll have to check that one out,
he wasn't a main character in that.
Okay. All right. There we go. We're getting all kinds of input today, boys. Scotty, have a good day. Thanks, man.
See you guys.
Great to have Scott Springer with us. We'll get him and ask him to join us from time to time, talking about the rest of the UC basketball schedule. And then, of course, really rolling into football. It's going to be really cool around here with them going to the Big 12.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, the basketball that's going to be played in this town. I mean, the Big East is a solid league, and the Big 12 is in a different galaxy from all the other leagues, not just the Big East, but the ACC and all the rest of them. And to think that some of those teams come rolling through here next year, including Huggy now, every year be rolling into town from West Virginia, Texas, Kansas,
Texas and Oklahoma are.
Although that story came out today, which was interesting, that Texas and Oklahoma now apparently are not going to join the SEC until 2025.
So 2 more seasons?
2 more football seasons. And 2 more full basketball seasons.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
I find that so weird. And look, I'm sure there are lots of stipulations, and monetary, I have no doubt being at the very top of the list. No doubt about it in my mind, without even diving into it. But I just find it hard to believe that USC and UCLA, they're coming into the Big Ten next year, right?
I believe so.
Football,
Yeah.
this coming fall. Because the Big Ten has not released its football schedule, I don't think, for this year yet. Am I right about that, or is that the following year?
I thought it was the following year.
Let me check this out.
2024.
That's when they come in.
Yeah.
Okay. So, is there a chance, I guess, then that something changes and they, Texas and Oklahoma can end up getting in the SEC in 24? But, I mean, heck, they committed to making this move over a year ago. It was only a handful of months ago that UCLA and USC decided to make the move. And now all the dominoes, which really nothing has happened since that announcement. Those were the two big moves in college football, college sports. Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12 to go to the SEC, which we now know is not till 2025. And then the shocker of all shockers is out of left field seemingly came the USC-UCLA jump from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. But now what happens? Does the Pac-12 survive? Do they add more teams? Does a Big 12 try and come in and scoop up a couple of the more desirable brands out of the Pac-12, i.e. an Oregon, a Washington, a Utah, Deion Sanders now at Colorado? Because Arizona, basketball, but outside of that, some of their non-Olympic sports. Of course, Colorado's not bringing anything to the table either, besides just the juice of Deion being there. That's about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, and especially when you start talking about a new television contract that's going to have to be done once they go to the expanded college football playoff, going from 4 teams to 12 teams in 2 years from now.
12 teams is going to make it.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
I tell you one thing. We were talking about UC football there for a second. I don't know if anybody's paying attention. What Luke Fickell's got going on at Wisconsin is unfreaking believable, what he's got going on up there. He's getting transfer portals. He's getting these guys coming from other schools. He's got a huge recruiting class right from the get-go coming in. You saw we announced earlier in the show today, Jordan Marshall. You think Wisconsin just showed up on that list all of a sudden? Along with Ohio State, Michigan, and Tennessee. This kid's one of the top 8-10 running backs in the country. And Wisconsin is on his Final Four. Luke Fickell, he's bringing in quarterbacks. He's known as a defensive guy. But, look, I'm not suggesting that they're going to go out and all of a sudden overnight contend with Ohio State and Michigan. But no one should ever forget. Don't ever think that it's impossible for Wisconsin to compete with Ohio State and Michigan. Don't ever believe that, because all you have to do is look at the tenure of Barry Alvarez as head coach at Wisconsin. He won more Rose Bowls during the years he was a head coach at Wisconsin, won more Rose Bowls than any other coach in the league won Rose Bowls. And those were the days where the Big Ten champion played in the Rose Bowls before the college football playoff and all this other stuff. So, Wisconsin's got the money. They've got incredible tradition. Fickell proved at Cincinnati he is a great recruiter, and he is now proving that he is, we always knew around here that he was a force to be reckoned with, so to speak, in college football, but now more eyeballs are on him.
I agree with that, and it'll be really interesting to see how he does in Wisconsin. And I think the big reason why we're seeing all these transfers It's mainly because you just look at the record and the resume that he had with UC and what he did for that program. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with Brian Kelly, right? I mean, you earn this respect, you garner this reputation of being able to turn a program around, and Wisconsin hasn't really, they haven't been anything like they were previously, like with Barry Alvarez. So it kind of makes sense. I think he's got a great resume, and he's probably a very good, I don't know what you want to call it, like, not convincer, but a salesman.
Closer?
Closer.
He's a
very
closer.
good closer.
There's no doubt. And somebody brought up in the chat that Wisconsin has never had team speed. Well, their style of play has definitely been different than most other teams. They tend to hand it off, and they've had some of the greatest running backs in college football history. Ron Dane. I mean, that guy, nobody's ever going to break that guy's record. All-time rushing leader in the history of college football. Nobody's touching that record. Nobody. So they were more, and you got to play to your weather conditions. I mean, it's a lot worse there than it is even in Columbus, Ohio. But the one thing Fickell did is he made UC's team speed go from here to here. And I have no doubt that that's the kind of athlete he's going to get into Wisconsin playing in the Big Ten. I mean, if he can have number 1 draft picks, right? You recruit some of these guys. Maybe they were a notch or two below, the Sauce Gardners of the world coming out of high school, right? He clearly wasn't being recruited by the Ohio States and the Michigans and the Alabamas. He ends up here. But, you got to have a great recruiter to recruit him. You got to have great coaches to develop him. And Fickell has proven, heck, he took half the coaching staff with him up there when he got the job. And after Gadula, he did not get the head coaching job. So, a lot of those guys that he was having as assistants to develop these players to become first-round draft picks, if not Rookie of the Year candidates in the NFL, he's getting a whole different kind of athlete now, I would argue, at Wisconsin than he would at Cincinnati. You agree with that?
I think Fickell sold his stock at its peak and got out of Cincinnati and got into a great situation because you could see the writing on the wall with what was coming in the Big 12. And I think he got out at the right time. I think he made a very, very prudent career decision, and I think it'll pay off for him at Wisconsin.
Do you think we'll see the Big Ten championship, Wisconsin versus OSU or Michigan? Do you think that's what's going to end up happening?
I don't know if it's going to happen this year. I don't know enough about what teams have coming back, but based on just the transfer portal alone, which leads you to believe oftentimes these are guys that come with experience from other places and so forth, and the way Fickell can coach. And you look at the western half of the Big Ten Conference and in football, and, you've got over there, Nebraska, program way down. Minnesota, up and down. Purdue, they had a good year this year. He played the Big Ten championship game. But Wisconsin traditionally is a much bigger football power. Not on an isolated year here or there, whatever it might be. Drew Brees was there, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, I think there's a legitimate chance that Wisconsin would be ready to compete overnight. They competed for it last year, and they weren't very good. But they're going to compete overnight for the west half of the conference, and the winner of that game. You're either going to be playing Ohio State, Michigan, or dark horse outside looking in, always Penn State.
You think they should get rid of the divisions?
They're going to when the my understanding is when the
UCLA.
when UCLA and USC join.
Yeah. You should be having the 2 best teams play for the Big Ten championship every year.
Yeah.
And if you get the bum team out of the West to play for the title when it really should be maybe Ohio State and Michigan running it back. I know that product-wise they probably don't want that rivalry to happen 2 weeks in a row, but let's say, Penn State's having a great year. But they get bumped out because Ohio State and Michigan are first and second in the East. Michigan beats Ohio State. Ohio State drops to third. Penn State is second, and they're 2 games better than the team that's coming out of the West. But the West team still gets to go in and get killed by the team coming out of the East. Let's throw Michigan and Penn State, or Ohio State and Penn State, or Michigan State if they have a good year. Come on. Let's get them to Indianapolis.
The only thing is what you get is when you go to a super conference, and let's just use the Big 12 as an example because they're the only ones that don't split into divisions. The Big Ten does, the ACC does, the SEC does, Pac-12 does, blah, blah, blah. You're at a point right now where you play everybody. That will change starting this year with 4 new schools coming into the Big 12. You can't play everybody during the regular season. So you sort of have this, this rotating, sets of games against different schools on any given year. And at least having divisions, you create a situation where it really is apples to apples, because the West half of the division, they're all playing each other. The East half of the division, much stronger in the Big Ten's case, are all playing each other. And granted, it seems like every year the 2 top teams are Ohio State and Michigan. Only one of them can play in the Big Ten title game. But, if you're thinking about, okay, down the road, you go to a college football playoff expansion, and it's going to be possible, the SEC certainly, Big Ten certainly, they'd like to get 3 teams in that 12. Right?
Yeah.
So let's use this year as an example. Let's say Wisconsin was a legitimate power. Let's just pick, Purdue. They went to the game. But let's pick this coming season. Let's say if they were, if Ohio State did what they did this year, the only game they lost all year long was Michigan. Michigan's undefeated. Now they're playing a 1-loss Penn State team who's ranked 9th in the country, right, for the Big Ten title game. Okay? Well, you've got a legitimate chance there now with 3 teams getting in. I don't know if it's better or worse, where if Ohio State and Michigan are playing back-to-back weeks, does Wisconsin still get in? I don't know. Another day, another debate.
Thom, I asked you about the gut reaction. Are the Bengals going to beat the Bills? Whatever. Gut reaction. Scott Satterfield going to work out at UC?
Yes. Yep. But workout's a pretty broad term. It's a very broad. What I mean by that is here, Paul, this is what I mean by it. The expectation level has changed so much after what Luke Fickell did 2 years ago. I think everybody felt disappointed by what happened this past year. They only lost, 2-3 games? There was a time where they win 9, go 9-3, and maybe win a bowl game. You're like, you're dancing in the streets. Well, now all of a sudden, you get a new coach in. You're going into a conference, as we've talked about, where there are very few, if any, layups anymore. There used to be a lot of layups when Fickell had it going on inside that American Conference for about a 2-3 year run there before this year. They didn't have as many layups this year. They weren't as good. So, I would have to, I guess before I would answer that, I'd have to probably, get an idea of what somebody determines is working out.
Are they competitive enough to at least have a chance to make it to the Big 12 championship?
This coming season,
in the next couple of years,
I think they got a legitimate chance. I do. With Oklahoma and Texas leaving, I think that when you start looking around and you compare what you have facilities-wise, and I've seen a few of them in the Big 12, you take Texas and Oklahoma out of that whole thing, and, you've got TCU. We know the run they have, but it's a small school. It's just smaller than Xavier. Now, they're pouring a ton of money into athletics. I'm saying as far as they're both private small schools.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
And Texas Tech had good teams, good coaches, good players. Kansas State. Now, there's a program I think that is really going to take off again, because I think they got the right guy in the head coaching job there. Kansas had a better year this year. But we're not talking about world beaters here on a year-in and year-out basis. I think Cincinnati can compete with all of those teams moving forward. It will be expedited by Texas and Oklahoma getting out of town, but that's true for everybody in the conference.
Yep.
All right, what do we got? Cherry on top.
This is a Casey special.
All right, Casey. Presented by United Dairy Farmers. Here we go before we get to boxed lunch. Casey, you love this.
Yeah. It's really short, but it's a good one. I'll just let you listen.
Hey, let me get your jersey. Hell no. Hey, let me get your jersey. Hell no. What you just telling me? Hey, let me get your jersey. Hell no. Hey, let me get your jersey. Hell no. What you just telling
Mark
me?
Chase.
Hey, let me get your jersey.
And for those of you wondering, that's William Gay. He was the guy that was asked before the AFC Championship game, was there anything that impressed him about the Bengals on offense? He said nothing. Those were his word. That was his word. Nothing.
I didn't realize that. It makes it even better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the guy that said it.
Oh, yeah.
So there you have it.
I thought that's why you played it.
I did too.
I didn't realize it.
That's even better.
I was just like, Jamar Chase won't let them have his jersey. He's a dog.
I think
Wow.
part of
Makes
KC
sense.
was left in Lawrence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of was.
I
My
mean,
heart was
now-
just ripped out.
Whatever part was left there might come back. But 2 days back in the saddle, a part of him has been left behind. We need to go retrieve it.
I don't know if we can get it back. There's a piece of Casey's soul just sitting on a upper deck seat at Arrowhead Stadium.
No doubt. In a puddle of white liquor. White Claw.
Ew.
Read what's happening.
Not much, Tom. You know, me and Casey were a part of the grieving process, right?
Yes.
The game happened. 2 days passed. We're sitting at Allen Fieldhouse, and we're kind of getting over it, starting to get over it, and all of a sudden, right in the middle of the game, you start seeing the chops. And they do the and they're doing it right directly at Travis Kelce. And me and Casey look at each other just like, this isn't what we needed right now. And we're cheering for the Jayhawks the entire game. You know, this is in the second half where we're rooting them on, and then all of a sudden the entire fan base starts just kind of rubbing in. They don't know that we're Bengals fans, obviously. So I just started, F you, Travis Kelce, right? God, get out of here. You suck. And the grieving just restarted. We had to reset on the grieving right then and there. It was tough.
All right, but you're back now.
We're back.
You're back in a good place.
We're fine.
You know?
We got some time to get over it. Most important offseason in Bengals history.
No doubt about it.
You know what's crazy too is like the day after he's on his own podcast with his brother and he's wearing all UC gear.
Oh, yeah. Suck it up.
Dude,
did that on
listen, if you're gonna dish it out, you
I agree, Tom.
gotta
I agree.
take it. You
And
gotta take it.
And I don't back off from doing it either. Like, if you're in the game, right? If you're in the game of talking crap,
Right.
you've got to be able to take it. And also, I would say you keep, like Eli Apple, when he gets burnt, he still talks crap. He's like, this is who I am. I talk crap. So you better believe the last 3 days sitting over there in Kansas City, people will be like, see me in my Bengals shirt, and they're like, oh, Burrowhead, right? I'm like, damn right it's Burrowhead. It is Burrowhead.
There you go. There you go.
So
Give it
much.
right back out.
Absolutely.
Burrowhead.
Burrowhead.
All right, boys. Take it away.
Thanks, Tom.
Casey, Paul, thank you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, Tom.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
I must admit, I didn't think much of this show the first time I laid eyes on it. Seemed like a bunch of stiffs wasting nice
The worst trade
microphones.
of all time happened back in 1803. Go ahead. Napoleon Bonaparte traded the Louisiana Purchase for $3 million. Napoleon, what happened? Half the country for $3 million. You can't even get Tucker Barnhart for $3
Then
million
I came to realize
anymore.
these guys are funny.
And Justin Fields have identical stats the last 5 weeks about throwing the football. This guy, okay,
And
folks,
are
is a
some of the
fidget
best
spinner.
gamblers I've come to know.
If you're betting on USC and or TCU, let it be known you are a square.
TCU is going to hammer this team tomorrow night.
I hate to hear that.
Tomorrow
when we come back
afternoon.
in here on Monday, you're going to be happy as a lark because USC lost, but you're going to be wrong about TCU.
Get ready for the most useless hour of your day. It's time for Boxed Lunch, presented by Betfred Sportsbook. Now, Casey, run that track.
All right, now we got to get into the point of this show where we have a constant opening song. I gotta dig on Spotify or something and get us a nice opener for this show. And this show is the Box Lunch presented by Betfred Sportsbook. I'm Reed Mouse. No Trace Fowler in the house today, but we do have Paul Fritchner, Brandon Sejo, Casey McCollister, and First show since the AFC Championship, 5 days. Obviously, we were in Kansas for that, and now we're back. Trace is going out of town, taking his family on a trip now that the season is kind of slowing down.
Sure.
Guys, a lot to talk about today. Obviously, the big news was Joe Mixon. There was a warrant out for his arrest yesterday. You guys talked about it on the show. But now we have an opportunity, to just kind of have an open discussion about Joe Mixon and what this means. And in my take on the whole Joe Mixon thing and this whole situation, you guys touched on the point that, it's being rescinded and that obviously just bad reporting on the fact that you're putting out his address and the potential victim's address. That's just bad reporting at all. But this is my take on this, and we were heading into a potentially tough situation this offseason with Joe Mixon, right? He's given $12 million in the offseason. There was kind of murmurs and rumblings before this postseason, before all this happened, that Mixon might not be back this year. We're paying him $12 million, one of the highest paid guys on the team. And in the AFC Championship, he gets, what was it, Casey? A fourth of the snaps?
Yeah, 20 snaps, and Samaje had 40, 43 or 48 or something like that.
Right, and we can go into, your opinions on this situation and, not just the situation with him as being arrested, having a warrant out for his arrest that is potentially rescinded. But just the fact that this kind of makes this situation a little easier, right? I was in the camp before this happened, before the postseason, midway through the season, honestly, before the season started, that this offseason we need to cut Joe Mixon. Because I've long had this take, and we'll get into this later, that running backs are a dime a dozen in this league. And I know that might sound crazy to some. I know that might be a shock to some, but they truly are. And you just cannot pay guys and continue to have success in this league. And this opens up a world of opportunity for the Bengals to kind of say, listen, it's easier to sit down and go, Joe, I think we're going to have to let you go now. And he's meant so much to this team.
So is this the out that the Bengals needed?
Right. I think that's what I'm saying. And it's not that he hasn't been a great back. He was my favorite Bengal before we got Joe Burrow. But for a bad analogy, because we like analogies so much on this show, it's kind of like you're in college, you're in high school, and you're dating a girl, right? You had your fun, but you kind of know maybe you're dating her for 6 months, 5 months, been dating long enough to where you just can't cut the cord very easily. And you're looking for, how do I get out of this? What am I looking for? How does this happen? And I don't know. Maybe you see her talking to a guy at the bar or something like that, and you're like, all right, we can't be doing this.
Just got to overreact.
Right. Just like, what are we doing here? Like, I mean, I'm not mad at you, but this just doesn't work anymore. I mean, I'm not saying we gaslight Joe Mixon here, but potentially that's what I'm getting at, is that this has made this situation a little easier. And I'll preface this. I hope Joe Mixon, I hope all this comes out to be nothing. I hope that the victims, I always believe victims first. I hope she's okay. I hope that Joe doesn't get arrested. I hope his career isn't railroaded by this. But I think this gives an easy out.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you've been listening to this show all season, this is not a new take from us, especially from you, Reed. It's not. This has nothing to do with the news that came out last night. You would have gotten on here, and Joe Mixon maybe wouldn't have been the headline story, but it would have been on this rundown because it's something to talk about here with the NFL offseason, especially as it relates to the Bengals. Mm-hmm. You have been on this take all year long that the Bengals, after the rookie contract expires for running back, you have a few great years, go ahead, draft another one. Pick somebody up in free agency. You have Samaje Perine. Whatever you do. Right. This is not a new take, but maybe this is the out that the Bengals needed to justify to. But I think if you go into Twitter, not to say that Duke Tobin and the Bengals front office is monitoring social media or the fans' pulse to make a football decision, because if they did that, they probably would have drafted Penei Sewell 2 years ago. But my point with that is that if you look at the social media reaction to all this, I don't think your take is unique. I think a lot of people realize that, hey, maybe he's not worth the money when we could spend it somewhere else.
Do you think it's you think Joe's getting on Twitter today, and it might be a shock to his system a little bit to see so many people outwardly going on Twitter? Because that is the majority take to say that, like, hey, this gives us an opportunity to kind of cut the cord and get out of this. You think Joe, who has been a fan favorite in this franchise for good reason, you think he's getting on Twitter today and be like, man, what happened here? Which might be a shock to the system on top of, you know, the legality problems that are persisting. Do you think I think Zim even tweeted something out like, Joe might be getting on here and like, what's going on?
Yeah, maybe take a day off from social media, Joe.
Yeah, no doubt.
Casey, any take on all that?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that this is just a rumor, that it's false, that, you know, that it ends up being nothing. That's
correct.
Probably the best case scenario for everyone. Do I think this made it easier for the Bengals? I don't know. I think maybe potentially they could have had a very small chance to restructure the contract. But I don't know. Now it's just getting to a point where, with this coming out, and I don't know. It just really muddied the water, in my opinion, because now if they cut him, it makes it look like it was because of the situation, and that just looks bad for Joe Mixon. You know what I'm saying? Like, if
right. Then it kind of railroads his career, and we don't want that.
Yeah, and we don't want that. So it's like, can we maybe make I'm now on the train to do a middle ground where we restructure Joe Mixon's contract, because I think that's an option. I think we could do that. I think we could fudge the numbers, make something happen. And same
cook
thing.
The books.
Fudge the numbers.
Cook the books.
Let's cook the books on Mixon.
Yeah. And I think you could do the same, because we'll probably eventually talk about Tyler Boyd's situation too. And I think you could probably maybe try to convince him. He's probably the one that you're not going to convince out of the two, just
right.
from sources that I know. Just personality-wise, I think you know, you're going to have a tougher time with that. But you know, I hate to see our guys in a situation that they're in right now, and I just hope that nothing comes of it, and that it's a rumor. That's what
I agree. I hope it's a nothing burger. I tend to overly believe per se victims in situations like this. I'm quicker to believe them than that they're false accusations in that case. But everything surrounding this, I'm not going to take a hard opinion either way. I hope it is a nothing burger. I hope that nothing came out of this, and that the victim's okay, that Joe Mixon's career isn't railroaded, all of that. I hope it just comes out that there was just a lot of smoke and there was no fire, that all this is good and he can continue playing. But that being said, playing somewhere else, and that goes into the point that we already have toggled, which is in the NFL, there is one rule that every team needs to run by, and it's bad because the way that the game was played for 50 years was running back first, run the ball first. But it almost seems an empirical fact that paying a running back can only hurt your franchise. 2 rules to live by as a franchise: never draft a back in the first round, and never pay a back. Look at the running backs in the league, the best running backs in the league. And out of all of them, you can start naming them. I mean, if you want to throw Joe Mixon up there, all these guys, Jonathan Taylor from last year, run down the list. There are 3 backs that are first-round draft choices that are in that top echelon, and that is Saquon Barkley, who's coming up at the end of his rookie contract. So is Josh Jacobs, who led the league in rushing this year, albeit on a bad team. So you kind of fudge the numbers there, as Casey says. And then the one guy that bucks the trend entirely is Christian McCaffrey. He has gotten a second contract, and he has, besides being off the field when he's injured, been worth every single penny that he's played because he is such a versatile back. But I would argue the fact that Christian McCaffrey isn't a traditional running back. He can do so much more. And that's what makes him more valuable. But you look up, and I saw this tweet. I tweeted it out. Let's look at all of the first-round running backs since 2015, and if they've gotten to a second contract, if it's been worth it. So let's go back to 2015. Todd Gurley.
No.
Not been worth it. Melvin Gordon. He got paid. and it wasn't worth it.
No.
2016, Ezekiel Elliott. Got paid. Wasn't worth it. Leonard Fournette.
Oh, playoff Lenny.
Playoff Lenny. Not good. Christian McCaffrey, buck the trade. Has been worth every penny when he's on the field. Then you go to 2018, and this is where the rookie contracts are. You got to start talking about them. Saquon Barkley, his contract's up, right?
Yep.
So that's a really tough situation for the Giants. Rashad Penny.
No. That's a terrible
Who?
pick, by the way.
Who?
That was my reaction. Sony Michel.
Oh,
No.
Nope. Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
No.
And then this past year, we got, or 2 years, Najee Harris, Travis Etienne. They're going to be good. When the rookie contract's up, cut the cord, go draft somebody else, which is where the Bengals are at right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was just unfortunate that Joe was a second-round pick. I mean, if he was a first-rounder, I think that this contract, you get that fifth-year option, right? Like, that's where I maybe have a little bit of a different opinion on drafting a guy in the first round because it just depends on where you draft him. You can't draft Ezekiel Elliott top 5 as a running back. You can draft
Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, like Saquon, we're going to see about that. Christian McCaffrey, I don't think was a top 5. I don't think he was a top 5. I could be wrong on that, but like those are the trend busters or whatever you want to call them. But the guys that you mentioned that were at the end, like Sony Michel's, the Clyde Edwards-Helaire's, they have not panned out at all. And I mean, those guys were not touted as a Saquon or a Christian McCaffrey or an Elliott, but if you're going to pick a running back, the plan should be that you're not going to pay them after the rookie contract. And the only way that it makes sense for me is that you get lucky and Christian McCaffrey falls far enough, or some of these guys like Saquon fall far enough that you draft them with the first round pick and you get that fifth-year option. Other than that, there's no point in signing a running back after their rookie contract, in my opinion.
Well,
they're a dime a dozen.
They're a dime a dozen. And that's the point where I'm making about don't even waste a first-round draft choice. Yeah, you can look at those guys. Saquon Barkley's been fantastic. Christian McCaffrey's been fantastic. Melvin Gordon, before he got paid, was fantastic. All these guys have been great. But I would argue, how many bad running backs are in this league?
A lot.
When was the last time the Cincinnati Bengals didn't have at least a good running back? The 90s? The 1990s? That's because, and I'll go down the list of rushers here in the NFL this year. Leading rushers, Josh Jacobs was a first-round pick. Derrick Henry, second round. Nick Chubb, second round. Saquon Barkley, first round. Miles Sanders, was he even in the second round? Dalvin Cook was a third round. Christian McCaffrey, Travis Etienne, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams. Just get a guy because they're a dime a dozen.
Yep.
Who was the last bad Bengals running back?
The only one that I can think of was maybe like the tail end of Bart Scott's career or Ben Jarvis Green Ellis's end of his career, which he was good for at least the year or two he was here. So, yeah, I mean, I think your point stands. Don't pay a running back a second contract and don't draft them high because they're a dime a dozen. And there's with the high draft picks anyways, there's so many other valuable positions that you need to draft there.
Correct.
Corner, linemen, athletes, and I say athletes, just the positions that matter more. The ones that you have to pay the big bucks to, and running back you don't have to pay big bucks for. So
exactly. In belaboring the point even further, when was the last time you looked at a team that was on the edge of making the postseason or getting them over the hurdle to the next point, and you went, they're a running back away from being truly great? Literally has never entered any of your minds once because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're relief pitchers. They are glove first second baseman.
Yeah. No, you make a good point. And if you're going to be able to go out there and get that value and you assess the priorities of what the Bengals need now to compete for a Super Bowl again next season, where does Joe Mixon fit into that? Okay, there. Boom. That answers your question.
Get $12 million off the books. You can repay Hayden Hurst, who got $3 million this year. You might have to pay him a little more. And you still got some surplus to work on these long-term contracts with the three guys that I know some people don't think T. Higgins needs to be signed long-term, but I think if you get those three guys long-term, we're a great team.
Joe getting paid this offseason?
I think he will.
I do too.
Do we think it's going to be similar to Pat Mahomes' 10-year, $500 million, or is it going to be more than that?
He
Less
will
years?
surpass Mahomes. I don't know how they structure it, but he'll get more than Mahomes. Now, Mahomes
he'll
did
get
make
more. He'll get more.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you said less, and I was like, whoa.
No. He'll get the highest contract in NFL history.
Who will get paid more these upcoming off seasons? Joe Burrow or Shohei Ohtani? Because Shohei Ohtani's getting $500 million. As long as he doesn't get hurt.
Joe.
It's wild.
Probably Joe, but Shohei.
It's good. They're both going to be right around $500 million. $500 million, I mean.
Yeah.
They're both going to be $500 million contracts.
And Shohei will never touch the playoffs.
I saw a Mike Trout tweet that he's been to more Eagles playoff games than Angels playoff games.
He tweeted that?
No, someone tweeted a picture of Mike Trout.
Oh
at
my
the
God!
playoff
I
games.
was gonna say.
Right.
Wow.
All right. So the next take, you guys got into this yesterday, and Casey was defending me.
Yeah.
Defending my take about Sean Payton. Ever since news broke that Sean Payton was going to the Broncos, and even before that, everyone wanted Sean Payton as their head coach. And I think Casey was bringing up this point to Thom. What about Sean Payton makes you believe, from what you've seen in the Broncos last season, from what you saw with Russell Wilson, that Sean Payton's going to turn around that team?
Wait. Reed, I think we just lost your audio.
No.
Oh, people are saying we can't hear Reed.
I can't hear him in my head. Better? I unclipped it.
Oh.
Yep. Tough.
Okay, go ahead, Reed.
But, okay, so I'll relabor the point once again. Casey was arguing from my point about Sean Payton going to the Broncos. And I believe everyone before said was like, Sean Payton, he's the coach that can turn you around. And Sean Payton's been a fantastic coach. But what about Sean Payton's career makes you believe, or even what you saw from the Broncos last year and Russell Wilson last year, that Sean Payton's going to turn around this franchise right then and there? What am I missing about Sean Payton as opposed to other long-term coaches in this league? That he is some guru, that he has some mystical powers that can turn around your franchise.
Well, and on that same vein, what about Russell Wilson and his play from this past year makes you think he can turn it around?
Right.
Because I don't think that we were talking about this on Off the Bench yesterday with Thom,
right.
And I asked the question, and Thom seemed to fully believe that Russell Wilson is going to be back on his game next year. And if you're looking at, okay, was this past year the outlier, or is it going to be the trend? I don't know how. There was nothing that you saw out of Russell Wilson this year that made you think it was an outlier. And that's the same point that I made, where if he had maybe 3 or 4 bad games toward the end of the year, you could say, oh, okay, well, maybe something was happening. Maybe he was a little hurt. Maybe he was banged up. Maybe he was tired, the season wore on him, whatever. He stunk.
Terrible.
Stunk. And you're going to expect Sean Payton to just walk in the door, fix everything? He fix something, maybe.
Right. He's a fine coach.
Yeah.
Don't get that wrong. I mean, you don't win that many games in the NFL without being a good coach. But I'm of the belief, personally, that coaches are made by quarterbacks, not the other way around. Zach Taylor's career is going to be made by Joe Burrow. I think that Sean Payton's career was made by Drew Brees. I'll take it one step further.
Uh-oh. Hit me.
I think Bill Belichick's career was made by Tom Brady.
Whoa!
At least as a head coach. He was obviously a fantastic, great defensive mind in the 90s under Bill Parcells and the 80s under Bill Parcells. But as a head coach, I think it has. Sean Payton with one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time. Some would even argue top 5 in Drew Brees. The Saints had 5 losing seasons since the beginning of Sean Payton's tenure. Granted, he wasn't coaching for one of them. Mike Tomlin, in his tenure, took over similar time as Sean Payton's, had 0 losing seasons. Bill Belichick, who has been the coach longer than Sean Payton, had 2 losing seasons. John Harbaugh, who took over almost the exact same time as Sean Payton, had 1 losing season. These are all with lesser quarterbacks other than Bill Belichick. So I'm confused as to what we are seeing from Sean Payton that this thing's are going to turn it all around. Can someone
No,
elaborate?
the answer is no. The answer is no, Reed.
And the one thing you haven't even mentioned, they don't have any draft capital or money to spend. How is he going to do it with no players coming in or with high talent? I mean, yeah, you can get lucky with a third or a fourth round pick, but I'm pretty sure those are gone too. Just look at the Russell Wilson trade. It was terrible. I mean, it was one of the worst trades of all time. I'm pretty sure it made it on one of your worst trades of all time, Reed. Did it not?
It did. It did.
So I don't
before
see
the Louisiana Purchase.
I don't see how in the world you trade your only first you have this year, and then a second and a third next year, which I don't think they have a top three. They don't have a first, second, and third round for the next 2 years. Right. Next 2 years.
That's how you win in this league, right?
Apparently,
you draft well.
Yeah, I would imagine so, or maybe they just thought, let's follow the Rams trend. But at least with the Rams, they were decent before they got Matthew Stafford. The Broncos were terrible. They had a decent defense, but they had nothing to work with to make this offense any better than what it is now. And so I don't know how they do this. I really don't. I feel like this is going to be another major flop. And Broncos fans, oh man, you better get off that horse. It's not time to ride.
Let me belabor the point of I don't understand the Sean Payton love one step further. I saw someone else do this. This is blind resumes. Obviously, one's going to be Sean Payton. Blind resumes. I already saw a media pundit do this as well. 152 wins, 89 losses, 631 winning percentage, and then 9-8 in the postseason with a Super Bowl. The other resume, 157 and 97, a 614 winning percentage, and 11-10 in the Super Bowl. So the exact
11-10 in the postseason.
11-10 in the postseason.
Did he win a Super Bowl?
Won a Super Bowl. The one Super Bowl win, plus 600 winning percentage in the regular season, and an over 500.
Are you talking about Mike
the
McCarthy?
Second? Oh,
it is Mike McCarthy.
yeah.
Sean Payton's a guru. Mike McCarthy's a dummy. If you listen to the sports talk enough, and they have the exact same careers. The exact same careers. Both on the tail of a Hall of Fame quarterback. Mike McCarthy's done it without a Hall of Fame quarterback his last 3 years here in Dallas. But Sean did it without his last 3 years in New Orleans. So I'm just saying I don't get it. And I don't think it's going to be turned around. Nothing leads me to that success.
Nope. I'm with you. All right. We end in the Pro Bowl, Reed?
God, guys.
I didn't watch a thing. I did see the highlights of the long drive competition or something, and I saw Saquon Barkley get nailed in the face with a dodgeball.
Have you ever watched a thing? Have you ever watched the Pro Bowl?
I watched a few plays when I was 10.
Casey, you're a bigger football guy than I.
The Pro Bowl stinks.
Yeah,
no one cares.
Pro Bowl stinks now. I think it was better back in the day when they actually cared about it. But as soon as players cared more about their health, I think it kind of went to the wayside. Now, I do think what the award of winning All-Pro is valuable in a sense.
Correct.
I don't think that should go away necessarily, but I do think the whole
Why did they ever play this game? Why? It brings up a bigger point for any sport. Why do you play All-Star games? I mean, the baseball one, I get it.
I think the baseball one is good.
The baseball one's fun, right? It's middle of the season, breaks it up, and then you just
right.
And this was
lot less risk of injury in the baseball one, than football or basketball.
Well, basketball they don't.
But even the basketball one,
they just dunk.
Yeah, the basketball one. The basketball one used to be okay. They've now restructured how they score the basketball All-Star, the NBA All-Star game. They do a different point system in the NBA All-Star game. Fun. And it's made it a lot more fun. It's made it more enjoyable to watch instead of the guys just coming – because there was a 2 or 3 year period there in the NBA All-Star game where they would come across half court, they take about 2 steps over the half court line, and they just start shooting threes.
Yeah.
And you get some of that now, but you don't get all of that now. The thing that has really taken away – and I know we're talking about the NFL the Pro Bowl. But the thing that has really taken a step back and used to be the marquee event in all of pro sport all-star events that is now irrelevant and sucks. What am I going to say?
MLB All-Star Game or what?
No, the NBA dunk contest.
Oh, yeah.
It's awful.
Did they take that away?
No, but they should. Or they just – because what happened is none of the big-name players – you never know who it is. I mean, okay. If you follow basketball, yes. Right. But, like, the big-name brand
you
guys –
You want to see LeBron, Giannis.
Yeah, like LeBron said forever he was going to do it. Giannis should do it.
Right.
These guys don't do it because they're afraid of getting hurt. Okay, I get it. But the NBA –
You know why the dunk contest actually stinks? On top of they're not doing it is, I mean, how many ways can you dunk?
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so much creativity that can be thrown in a dunk that when you're doing this for 30 years.
Yeah, but back in the day, it was phenomenal because it was so new. And
right.
Or even like if you think there was one, I think it was the Zach LaVine contest a few years ago was really good. But even when you think back to the Blake Griffin, the Kia car,
right.
Jumping over the Kia is not that impressive because I couldn't do it. But like jumping over the Kia for Blake Griffin, that's his normal vertical leap anyway. But the fact that you bring a car out on the court.
In a choir singing I Believe He Can Fly.
Yeah, like that whole, it's a spectacle. It's fun. Or Nate Robinson going up and doing what he did. Or the guys, I remember one year they brought out a 12-foot hoop. So you had a second hoop that was 2 feet higher.
Yeah.
Or the guys that would slap a sticker on the back of the backboard and then you'd get the camera that zoomed in on the back. Like those things were fun. That doesn't happen. It stinks now. NFL, the Pro Bowl stinks.
The Pro Bowl's done, right? Like like they're gonna do this 7-on-7, and just the fact that like 4 different AFC quarterbacks just said I'm good. Like I don't even want to go and do this.
Tyler Huntley
to a point where Tyler Huntley, who threw 2 touchdowns, is gonna be playing in this thing. They're gonna look around and just go, like Casey said, we'll just give out an award. Congratulations, you were a Pro Bowl selection or whatever, just like they do in high school and college, where
should be like an ESPYs night, like NFL awards. Just do that,
right? Yeah. Have some comedian up there giving jokes and
and probably the ratings will still probably stink, but at least it's more entertaining and you get to see like the history of the season, I guess, kind of like a recap of those all-star moments. Like, can you imagine Stephon Diggs walks up there, grabs his All-Pro award. They're playing that catch in the background where he's just – because people forget stuff like that happened earlier on in the season. So that's what I agree with you, Brandon. I think it should just be an award show.
I don't know why anyone ever played in that to begin with. I mean, there's absolutely no reward. It's all risk.
Right. I mean, I guess they're millionaires, so they really could go out there anyways. But, like, it used to be played in Hawaii, so maybe just getting a week-long vacation in Hawaii would be kind of fun. But, like, they're also millionaires, so that probably means nothing to them.
What happened, it's after the season, and you're an offensive lineman, and, like, no one wants to hurt each other, but, like, you're about to give up a sack and you get hit low, and then your whole next season's done for playing in some game that doesn't matter. I mean, there's absolutely no reward.
I think
for playing.
back in the day, you used to get bonus, or they might still do this. You get bonuses for making All-Pro.
Oh yeah, you definitely.
All-Pro is different than Pro Bowl, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think maybe they might have struck like the language of it might have been different back in the day, like, or maybe the award was only given out when you play. I don't know this for certain. I'm just thinking.
My opinion's changed because I used to be about like everyone should play in the bowl games, all this and that, like. When Bryce Young said he was playing in the bowl game for Alabama, I was like, "You got to be kidding me! What are you doing?" Like, and same with the guy that killed UC, Anderson. Who's the middle linebacker or edge rusher for Alabama?
Will Anderson.
Yeah, he played in it too. And it's like, dude, you're risking millions of dollars. I used to be very old school in all my approaches, whether it be baseball, basketball, football. Now I'm like, all right, let's
and somebody pointed out in the chat. There is incentive in the Major League in the home run derby because the cash
win $1 million.
You win $1 million.
That's different than playing like an active game. Like
the home run derby is now home run derby has always been great, but it used to tail behind the dunk contest.
Yeah,
because I mean maybe I'm just a baseball fan, but I sit down and I watch the home run derby every year because it's fun.
Back.
And the timing thing is great.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing else going on. Casey, as someone who genuinely doesn't know a whole lot about baseball, this might blow your mind.
Yeah.
20 years ago, the MLB All-Star Game ended in a tie. And the MLB All-Star Game used to be a lot bigger than it is now. Back when the American League and National League never played, so it was the only time you got to see like Pete Rose play. I'm trying to think of somebody from the AL really quick, Harmon Killebrew. So that was the only time you ever got to see that. But they did interleague play, and it just kind of got washed out. So now they're playing this All-Star Game, but we get to see these players play all the time. It ended in a tie. So the MLB came in trying to save their toast of the summer, the All-Star Game, and they said, how can we make this more interesting? How can we make this more competitive?
So dumb.
They decided
So dumb.
that the winner of the All-Star Game, Casey,
Yeah.
got to have home field advantage in the World Series.
What?
Can you imagine if they didn't do a neutral site for the Super Bowl and they played the Pro Bowl to decide who got to have the home field at the Super Bowl?
What?
So, like, if the AFC won the Pro Bowl, the Bengals would have the Super Bowl at Paycor. But if the NFC won it, it'd be at SoFi, and the Rams would host.
How was there? When was this?
This
they did this
just
for
stopped.
it just stopped 2
Like
years.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
What? This was going on for
20 years.
This is
20
awesome.
years?
This retroactive
How in the
information is
world-
awesome.
I knew this would be amazing.
Baseball's dead.
Terrible.
Baseball's
Why?
dead.
Why would they ever do that?
It just meant more. They needed to incentivize the game.
Right.
Oh, it's
And
garbage.
to be
Just
fair,
get rid of all pro games altogether. Just make it an award show.
well, the All-Star Game's still fun.
Yeah, the baseball All-Star Game is the best one. Yeah.
To be
Home
fair,
field
it was just
advantage.
one game, right? Because they're playing a 7-game series. So if you got home field advantage, you just got game 7 at home. Like that was just the difference maker in the whole thing. But that still mattered. And the complaint is like, yeah, they're making this more competitive, but like if they actually wanted to try and win, you wouldn't be shifting a new arm out there every inning. You'd have Justin Verlander versus Max Scherzer for 7+ innings instead of them just getting their 1 inning and then you get the next guy in. Every guy gets to play. If they actually wanted to play, like let's freaking get after it. Let's see who the best team is. Let's not get Mike Trout 1 at bat and then kick him out of the game.
I'm interested in your take, Reed, on playoffs with the way they've changed the postseason, like the 7-game format. And I think it's this way in NHL and NBA. I don't know if they did it in MLB, where it's instead of 2-3-2, now it's 2. Isn't it 2-3, 2-2, 1-1-1? Am I?
In the MLB, it's still 2-3-2.
Yeah.
It's still
But in NHL and NBA, I think they changed it to the other format, which I don't like.
Yeah, which is why the NBA Finals takes like a month.
Yeah,
Right.
They do a day off every
I mean, I
game.
love the NBA postseason. I love the NBA postseason. But good Lord, it's another season.
It is 6 weeks long.
I mean, it legitimately starts in April and can go pushing July.
People complain about the MLB being 8 months long or whatever, and low key the NBA is longer.
Oh, it's so long.
It starts in October, ends in mid-June.
Right.
It's crazy.
It's just as long.
While we're crapping on Major League Baseball, they didn't come to a deal with YouTube TV this week. I got an email on that, so there's another layer of not being able to watch.
Yeah, the MLB Network.
Like that was my
no
only
longer-
shot. That was my only shot at being able to watch like a baseball game on a streaming service. 'Cause I'm not going to pay whatever Bally has.
Well, you'll still get Sunday Night Baseball
on ESPN.
You'll still get the ESPN games, but yeah, you won't get MLB Network's Game of the Day or Game of the
live
Week and
look-ins
stuff
or anything like that.
Yeah,
Like
you won't get any of that. And I've got it's funny as a Cubs fan, so I just pay the MLB package because I can watch Cubs games on Marquee Sports Network. But the games that I want to watch the most, I cannot watch, which are when they play the Reds. Because they come to town or the Reds go up there to Wrigley Field. And, I'm looking for bragging rights over my entire family and over this entire chat because I love being a heel to you guys regarding the Reds. And I can't watch those games unless I go to like a local bar or something like that and then watch it that way. But, yeah, the MLB, the YouTube TV has just said F it to baseball entirely.
Yeah, I don't know enough details if it's MLB, wanting too much or YouTube TV wanting too much. Like, I don't know what the deal is, but the product's not easy to find.
Well, I have what am I looking for? Conspiracy, or I have hypothetical.
Conspiracy.
Conspiracy that's why Bally Sports went under. When Bally Sports bought it from Fox, the Fox Regional Sports Networks, like it was, they thought that they were getting screwed in these streaming deals. This is all hypothetical or conspiracy.
Oh, yeah.
They thought they were getting screwed.
We can do it ourselves is what you're getting
and we'll
to.
take it and we'll get more money because we'll yell at these YouTube TV. They need us just as much as we need them. We'll work on these negotiations. And they got to the negotiation table, and Google, Alphabet, YouTube TV, big companies just said, yeah, whatever, you guys can leave. Like, we're drawing no numbers. We got more people watching the Oxygen Network than we do watching MLB Network.
If this was the NFL, it'd be a totally different story.
The NFL has all the bargaining chips in the world.
NFL could run their own they could take everything to their own platform, and I pay for it.
What was the thing that Thom brought up like 2 weeks ago, that the top 100 broadcasts, like
80
of them, 80 of them weren't just football games. They were National Football League games.
Boom Shakalaka brings up a point, too, that MLS is going to Apple TV this year for all their broadcast. Horrible.
Yeah,
I mean, there's not –
I'm
Apple
disappointed
TV's
in that
cheap.
one.
It's like $5.
It's
But
cheap,
you
but, like-
also need a MLS subscription. Just because
Oh.
you have Apple TV doesn't mean you also get the MLS package. You then need the
You have to
add-on
buy the
for
MLS
MLS.
package.
Yeah, so then I'll watch FC Cincinnati, the 3 games that I go to from free tickets a year, like that somebody gives me.
I mean, I'll probably get it. I enjoy watching FC.
Do I need to go to TQL? Never been.
It's a
Haven't been
sweet
yet.
stadium.
Yeah, go to
I
it.
go a
It's
lot.
fun.
Yeah, it's awesome.
What tickets cost me? Run me.
Oh, you can
You know people. Well, don't worry.
you can get
Yeah,
cheap.
we'll get you.
You can get cheapos there.
Yeah,
I'm getting up there, big dog.
No,
I know people.
You know what? I almost did. I cut myself
almost
off.
did it.
I don't know if I've ever paid for a ticket to an FC game because I know a lot of people that are around the team, but they used to be fairly inexpensive. Now the team, it might be a little more this year. They're good. I don't know. Casey, you'd know better than I would.
Definitely not as cheap as Reds tickets.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
that's...
they're
yeah.
in between Bengals and Reds tickets.
Well, not even.
Which doesn't
Well,
help
Bengals
either.
are in their own different category now. You can go. You and Mariana can go for $20 a pop, easy. I bet.
Okay. It is annoying that the Reds games that I want to go to, tickets get bumped up. When the Cubs and Cardinals come to town, they double those tickets.
Even there's a funny story about something similar. I would always go. The Red Sox are my AL team because my dad had a client in Boston. We'd go to games at Fenway, but we were on vacation in Florida and they were playing at Tropicana, the worst field dome ever in the history of sports. And they had it's same thing. When the Red Sox would come to town,
tickets would be double.
they had dry erase boards that they rewrote and they would stick
Ticket
on top.
prices.
I'm like, this is insane. But that's it. It would go from like $5 to $25 tickets.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's great. All right. So final topic before we get into the vault, and we're not doing Wheel of Lunch today because I got a lunch suggestion that I think you guys are gonna like.
Oh.
But
Ruby's?
I was hoping Gina's, but it sounds like we got something else on the cooker.
So this is, I just want to give a quick ode to the Fightin' Who Days, our Cincinnati Bengals. Season ended on Sunday, guys. And I know we've had some time to digest this, but I just want you guys to breathe in that we are in the good days, guys. Just breathe it in. I'm serious. Like, this is what you've been wanting your entire life as a Cincinnati Bengals fan. To be competing for championships, to go to the AFC championship, to taking the AFC winners, the Kansas City Chiefs, owning them 3-1, and the fourth game going down to the final seconds. This is the greatest Bengals team. We just witnessed the greatest Bengals team of our life. Older guys, obviously, older people, they have, Ken and Boomer's Super Bowl teams. But this was the best Bengals team of our life. They were incredible. Guys, in 2 consecutive years, we've won multiple road games. I guess this year we won 1, but we've won at least multiple playoff games back-to-back years. We're 3-1 in road playoff games. We're 2-0 at home. Back-to-back conference championship. Do not get swept up in trying to win it all. I know we need to win it all. I know we want to win it all, but when it doesn't happen, don't let that feel like a failure of a season, because that's when fandom gets toxic. That truly is. You want to win it all. You're striving to win it all. But you should be able to look back on the season and go, all right, that was an incredible ride. And I just want you guys to breathe that in.
It's the Andy Bernard. Don't know the good old days till whatever the quote is. But
Don't you wish you could know when you're in the good old days when you're in them?
Yeah, there you go.
What do you think happens first? Reds winning season or Bengals win a Super Bowl?
That's a hilarious question.
That's a good question.
The Reds winning 82 games or the Bengals winning it
Reds
all.
winning season or Bengals Super Bowl?
Probably, it just seems more likely that a Reds winning season. I don't know. We're probably 3 years away from that.
I would God, I don't know what I would
2024 is going to be great.
But here's the thing, like the Reds could just, like all these young guys can just come out of nowhere and they can just, Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Ellie De La Cruz, Spencer Steer, all of a sudden just have a great year and they win 82 games.
Yeah, like even in a when you think about a horrific baseball season that might win 66 games.
Right.
I mean, I know asking them to win 17 more games is a lot of games.
You can luck into some wins.
But you can luck into 16 or you can luck into a like 75, 76 win season with a bad team in baseball and then find yourself on September 8th being like, oh, we only got to go 10-6 here.
Just a good June, right?
The problem,
you have a good June and you're back in this.
The problem is with the Reds, August, September, that's when you have call-ups and it just turns into loss after loss. You have guys that have never played in the big leagues before.
Right, because they're just trying to get them
I
some
think
MVs.
people would be surprised by the amount of people that would pick a Reds winning season to happen first before a Bengals Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because if the Bengals don't win it next year, you got two Red seasons in there to do it. I think I would probably I don't know if I would pick a Bengals Super Bowl because I know the Chiefs have been to the AFC Championship 5 years in a row. They've hosted the AFC Championship. I get that. But asking this team to go back to the AFC Championship 3 years in a row or for the Reds to luck into some wins over the next 2 seasons, I might pick the Reds in there. I might pick the Reds, but I'd really have to think about it.
Sir Boy Wonder has a great point here, and it happened every year I covered the Reds, where they just started slow, whether it be 3-8,
That's true.
3-18. Like
they've never done well in April.
No,
not recently.
They just tanked to start the year, and it kills.
Well,
them right
like the
away.
one year where they actually were competing for a wild card spot. What was that? 2021.
Right.
2021.
Yeah, they started
really slow.
They started slow the first. They did well the first week. They were in first. After the first week, they were in first place in the NL Central, and then they tanked for like 3 weeks.
Right.
And had to play catch up. And then they were fine. They were 4 games out going to the All-Star break, and then they lost 7 straight series in the second half. If you win 2 of those series, you're in the postseason.
That was when the Cubs had like the second best record in baseball. 3rd week of June, and then they just lost 15 games in a row, and just were like, all right, we're done. Just traded everyone.
Oh, and even think about the Reds last year, going on how many games was it, Brandon? You would know, 20.
They went since opening
3-22.
They went
3-20.
They went 1-19 after opening day.
Okay, all right. Played well in Atlanta. If you think about how the Reds did after that losing streak, after they started 3-22,
yeah.
They did start 3-22, but if they don't start 3-22, they were serviceable for a winning seat for winning for going 500. I mean, if you take out that the rest of the way, you can at least have a conversation about a 500 season, which is what makes me think that I would probably lean to the Reds to have a winning season before a Bengals Super Bowl.
Go ahead. Okay. The problem is the track record of it's just like rebuilding. The rebuilding never working. The slow starts have happened every single year almost.
Yeah.
The bar is so low for Cincinnati baseball fans right now that I hear my friends talk about this all the time. I hear Trace and Sean talk about this. They just want to be playing meaningful baseball in August.
Yeah.
They don't want to be in first.
When they
just want to be like, hey, if we have a good August right here, we're 6 games out from the wild card. That's literally all they want. They just want to be watching baseball and caring about it till the Bengals start back up.
Good luck.
That's good.
Won't happen this year, but it might happen next year, which if the Bengals don't win the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah. You want to know what my take is on it as the hardcore Bengals fan?
Yeah.
And baseball fan.
I think the Reds actually would probably get there first because of how hard it is to – you said win a Super Bowl or get back to a Super Bowl?
Win a Super Bowl.
Win a Super Bowl.
Just because of how hard it is to win a Super Bowl. Just think about Drew Brees being a top 5 quarterback, in my opinion, top 5. And he only won 1.
Aaron Rodgers
only won 1. It's just really hard to do, guys.
It's really hard to win in baseball.
Trent
when you have a bad
Dilfer only
team
won
too,
1.
though.
That's true. People forget about that.
It's just tough.
To be fair to the Reds, they've had 1 winning season in the past decade, and they clipped it by a game. Or 2 games. They won 83 games.
Yay. Well, didn't they go? They went 31-29 in the COVID
They
season.
did. I wasn't
That
gonna
doesn't count.
It only counts when I'm talking about how the Cubs won the NL Central that year.
True.
That's
All right.
the only time it counts.
We going in the vault?
Yeah, not a whole lot of college basketball tonight.
VCU under. VCU and St. Louis.
You're on a heater.
Under 141. So I have been straight donating for the last week on the graphic, but I did win last night because of Houston live. And then the UCLA under came through.
Yeah.
VCU and St. Louis under for me. I got this. I read this somewhere. The Betfred last night was 141. And I think the last 12 meetings, every matchup has gone under 141 except for one, and that game went to overtime. The one that it went over 141. It's going to be a close game, real big game in the A10, but that one's tonight. Kansas money line tomorrow on the road at Iowa State.
I don't have any bets tonight, really, that I've liked. Haven't really looked into it. I know tomorrow there's a huge slate of college basketball games, the big one, and Paul kind of forecasted because of Ken Palm that the spread for Purdue versus Indiana is going to be about 3 points. Indiana's playing well the past few weeks and got back in the top 25.
Oh, Indiana screwed me the other night.
If you don't know me, Indiana, I like Indiana. Xavier's my number one team, but I have a college friend that is a diehard Indiana fan, and it's kind of bled into mine. I root for them to win all the time. I watch them a lot. There is not an ounce of me. I watch them play nearly every game. There's not an ounce of me that makes me think that the spread might be about 3 points. They're at home at Assembly Hall. 3-point dogs. There's not an ounce of me that thinks that they're going to win that game or come close to covering. I'll be dead honest. Without Xavier Johnson, I like Purdue a lot. We'll see what the spread comes out. I think there's going to be a lot of people on Purdue. It's going to be a square play, but I still like Purdue to cover in that game.
All right.
I'm retiring from gambling after this week.
Whoa!
Oh, no.
Oh,
Come on
no.
now.
No, I have nothing in the vault right. I haven't looked yet. I need to.
Casey's been hot. You going in the vault?
I am. I think so. Here's the thing. I know it's not been posted in the Discord, but we've talked about it. I have been a strong proponent, to not bet on the Pistons. But guess what, baby? They're playing the Hornets, who suck just as bad as them, and they're shaping up to be the play of the night. I'm taking the Pistons, and I really like the Wizards too. It's shaping up to be a system play. Sources are telling me to take the Wizards at 4.5. The Pistons was -1, by the way. So those are my two picks to make up for people not making picks today.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice. So the lunch today.
Yeah, what is lunch today?
I mean, we can throw it on the wheel. But I really would like some Billy Yanks.
It is Friday. It's true.
I really would like some Billy Yanks.
All right, we can go to Billy Yanks. We can go to
Any objections?
I mean, I did have my heart on Gina's. We haven't been there in a month, but we can go there next week.
There's always another Friday. Brandon, you got something?
Go there Monday.
I'm probably getting my my quick fix because
all laid up.
I don't feel the best. So
good point. All right, let's just go to Billy Yanks.
Billy Yanks it is. So we won't even do the Wheel of Lunch. Not today. But I'll round out this show saying good luck to my brother. My brother's a head baseball coach down in Division II college in Wichita, Kansas. They start their season tonight. They go down to Bethany, Oklahoma. They play
Leader of men.
So good luck to the Newman Jets. Playing at 1 o'clock today. If you root for one thing, you can bet on Division II college baseball. Put some money on the Jets. So
Fly Jets fly.
Fly Jets fly.
Let's
Guys,
go.
This has been Box Lunch, sponsored by Betfred Sportsbook. We'll put out our picks. Me and Paul will put out some picks here later on.
Casey got to get that prop.
Casey,
Those PRAs.
Prop hit some prop yesterday, but we'll be back Monday. Guys, thank you.